Everybody make sure their mics are on. All right, we are seconds away from 30 after the hour, and we'll give a rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. There's the clock, so let's go ahead and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, good evening to our council and to the members of public that are either out in that room in front of us and or online. At this time, I'd love to turn over to Katie to take roll for this evening's meeting.
Shoemate?
Here.
Hess?
Here.
Hasmore? Here. McNabb?
Here.
Molnar?
He's here.
Valentine? Wood? Here.
All right, so we have all members of council present with one who rolled right in.
We have
just
one
in time.
absent. Valentine's absent.
But we're gonna need a motion to excuse Councilman Valentine.
Motion to excuse Valentine. Second?
All right, Katie, can you call roll, please?
Hess?
Yes.
Casmore?
Yes.
McNabb?
Yes.
Molnar?
Yes.
Shoemate?
Yes.
Wood? Yes.
Great. Well, council, I'm really excited for our study session this evening. Before we get to our study session, for our members of public that are out there, we would love to offer a public comment period per topic. So this public comment at the opening would obviously be relevant to the resident survey or any other topics at large. Once we get through resident survey, we'll open it up for another public comment for building department and so forth. So at this time, let's open up. Again, this would be any general public comment or comment specific to our resident survey.
Good evening. Do I do the address?
Please state your name and address.
Brandon Dix, 30664 Bayview. Yeah, I appreciate that because I was just talking with Rob and I was talking with Rick, who's my neighbor. I kind of got turned off these study sessions the last time we had one with the, what was it?
Airbnb short
Yeah, the
terms.
B&Bs. And it seemed like, I sat in the audience for about 3 hours and it's like, all right, let's take public comment now. And it's really hard to go back to a discussion when the discussion is hot and active. So I appreciate that. We should take a topic and let's close that topic or get some questions and forward that topic. So I do appreciate that. That's my one complaint and I wasn't going to come. Then both these guys said, just Brandon, just go say something. We'll say something. So yeah, thank you for doing that.
I appreciate that, Brandon. Thanks. Any other public comments before we go ahead and jump into our first topic? All right, Councilman Molnar, this is a little study guide to guide the discussion there.
Thanks.
For the first topic, resident survey. So I'm really excited to dive into this together. Council, in front of you, in addition to the packet that was provided by Katie, I just print out this little study guide that I think will help our discussion this evening. Encourage you to pull that up. The first item in that study guide for us this evening is resident survey. I just want to throw out a couple thought starters for council's reaction. I think our goal today should be to understand how we want to approach the resident survey and really the sole goal of capturing as many resident perspectives as possible across the city of Gibraltar. For a backdrop, a few years ago, as a part of the master plan process, a survey was done. That survey had a little over 270 respondents and was used as a part of the master planning process. That survey was included in its entirety in your packet. In front of you, council, what I'd ask us to consider is what content we would like to include in the upcoming and planned resident survey, and then how we want to develop a plan for execution, meaning next steps and timeline considerations as we leave today. What I thought would be a helpful thought stimulator from my perspective, I think number one is, I think reduction in the size of the survey compared to the master plan survey is critical. So council, in front of you, you see I'm proposing 8 questions in front of you in your study guide, which I'd love to talk about each one of those. So that's number one. Number two, I think it's imperative that those questions are designed with the output in mind. Meaning, how are we gonna take that question and the subsequent answers and use that as an administration in the city? So with those two things being said, let's start this discussion with the content, meaning what questions we'd like to consider for inclusion. And then after we close the content discussion, we can talk about how do we want to distribute the survey, what the timeline or next steps are for that. So for those that are not sitting here with this document in front of them, the 8 questions, and I will just give a snapshot, are number one, in what age range do you fall? So capturing the respondent's age based on brackets of ages, similar to what was done in the master plan survey. Question number 2 would be, how long have you lived in Gibraltar? Similar to what was included in the master plan survey. Is there any objections to those 2 questions or any thoughts? Okay. I'd like to double click on question number 3. So in the prior master plan survey, the question was posed as, what are Gibraltar's most positive aspects? Select no more than 5. And in that survey, all respondents were given a list of pre-populated response options and could select up to 5 of them. My feedback I'd like everybody to consider is, I think the root of this question should be around what makes Gibraltar special to that resident. So I put that as a subtext. Now, maybe that's accurately captured with, most positive aspects, but I think the root I'd like to really understand is what is most special to that resident about Gibraltar, number 1. Number 2 is, this previous master plan survey offered 5 response options, and they could select all 5 that they chose, right? I would say if we do choose to do a selection of pre-populated responses, we reduce that to 3. And my why is because then you get a more focused prioritization of the top 3 as opposed to 5, which 5 is going to dilute the response rate because you're going to be able to select 5 per respondent across all respondents. That's number 2. Number 3 is the survey methodology does allow you to select 3, but do it in order of priority, meaning 1, 2, 3. Again, it further prioritizes in the respondent's eyes what is most important to them. And then if we do choose to put in pre-populated options, just like the master plan survey did, I ask that we review them and refine them. The other option you have in all of these survey questions is do a comment box, meaning they can put whatever is on their mind. Now, the upside of the comment box is there's no bias. Whatever they feel is important to them, they're listing. The downside of a comment box is it's text that now needs to be analyzed versus a pre-populated response, which is much more easy to analyze, right? So there's methodology, a lot of AI tools today where you can word map and heat map and analyze this much more effectively, but it is a downside, meaning people can use different language to describe what's special to them, and it's not as clean and organized as a list of pre-populated buckets. So I want to stop there on question number 3, just open up for discussion. If we feel like this question is important, meaning most positive aspects, and any thoughts around kind of the sub-comments that I put in your study guide.
I guess I have a question as the whole. Do you want me to wait until the end on the
Please.
question of the whole? Is this I guess 2 things. Number 1, is this survey being developed by somebody in that industry, or is this just your draft of what you want a survey to look like?
Just a draft.
Okay. And I guess in follow-up, what is the goal with the outcome of the survey? What is the answers that we get? What is it driving? What's the end game?
Yeah, I think to me, the goal is to make sure that we provide an opportunity for all residents to speak about the topics that we choose to assess. And then 2, to use that data set in our decision-making process. So for example, we might have things that we have to prioritize as an administration. Now we can bring in that resident data set beyond public comment to round off the decision-making process. Or in a more targeted example, some of the survey questions propose a specific assessment on a specific topic, such as short-term rentals, for which we can then, again, pull that into the decision-making process. So Councilman Molnar, I think overarching, give every resident of the city of Gibraltar a chance to weigh in a consistent, systematic approach through a survey. And then two, use that set of responses to help us bring the resident voice to all the decisions that we're tasked with making.
Should we consult an expert on this so that we ensure that we're not asking suggestive questions or putting suggestive scenarios in place inadvertently?
I think yeah, we can absolutely do that. Absolutely bring in experts for their expertise or services. Some of them obviously may have a cost aspect to that, but
Yeah.
it's up to council.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah, please.
Question. Okay, you said there were 277 responses to this lengthy questionnaire. So how do you put that out there? I mean, we only got 277 people, so how do you get this one out to more than that? I mean, I don't know how it was, I never saw this questionnaire before, so I didn't know anything about it. I don't know how many other residents don't know anything about it, so what's our plan for that?
I think we should, number one, ask those that were involved. I think a couple of people in chambers here were involved in that previous survey, so we can lean on them for their experience on how they approach that. And then two, whether it's with experts or within ourselves, figure out a way to get as many legs behind this as possible through digital and print methods. So it's something we should talk about tonight.
Okay, because not everybody's digital.
Exactly.
So I'm just saying, I don't know how to get this out there, because the more people responding is going to be, of course, much better. And 277 doesn't seem like very many.
Yeah, I
No,
think,
yeah, sorry, may I?
no, please, yeah.
So it was really Arthur Mullins' project to get this out, our planner from Wade Trim. He
Okay.
spent his energy on getting this out, and several of us were members of that committee for the master plan study session or planning session. And
Okay, you were on?
I was on it, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I was surprised that we only got 271 respondents too, because we put a major effort. We put these paper surveys in the gas station, at the local restaurants. It was blasted out on Facebook in a variety of different ways, but it was lengthy. And there was not a lot of responses, although my guess is 271, we'll find out, actually was probably a lot. It just doesn't seem like a lot, given the fact that we have, almost 5,000 residents. Which begs the question to me is, how much is to be said for the non-responses? Is there that much of, hey, status quo is great, that wouldn't want to take the time to respond? Or if we respond, we don't think we're going to get results? What's the reason behind the 4,660 or 29 people that didn't respond? Did they all not know about it? What value do we put behind that? I don't know.
Yep. So something we need to talk about today, right, which is like digital and print methods. I mean, there's a multitude of ways we can do this. Everything from text to online posting to social media to printing out at any, spot in town, including City Hall, to considering including it in any other mailing distributions that come out from the city of Gibraltar. I mean, multitude of ways that I think we can try and tackle that, but
I
I
think
do
a
feel like we
shorter
have.
survey will help.
I agree, and I think, based on what we've seen, I think the community is quite engaged, and hopefully that reflects in their willingness to participate in what is a pretty short and sweet survey.
I will say, when you look who was voting, it was like, my generation was the younger one, who were more tech savvy. I think they would have been voting more, and if you go back and look, it wasn't. It was the older generation that was replying to the survey. So we definitely have to incorporate some tools to get that generation. I mean, maybe, I don't even think we have Twitter for us, but Facebook or I'm thinking too, if we have it set, when's the next voting thing, in November?
August.
August, because we don't get a ton there, but if we had it ready for that, that would be a great, maybe could we hand it out at the same time? Is that legal? Are we allowed to do that?
We could leave it on a table
We can
there.
leave it a nice table, make a nice display, even outside if they can't have it inside.
Yeah, because that's not campaigning or anything.
Yeah, it's not camp, so we can leave it right inside and maybe you tell people that's out there. I mean, that might, because that's when we see a lot of the residents,
Right.
What about even a series of surveys? You know, maybe not just limit it to a one shot and you're out, maybe it's a series of surveys or a series of opportunities to complete the survey.
You know, do like a 2-month span, is that what you're talking about? Or-
I was thinking even like, you know, you got 2 questions one week and 2 questions the next week and 2 questions the following week. I was trying to think outside the box to get more response and get a following behind it. Because like you said, Dorothy, 271 just isn't a lot. Why aren't the other, you know, people interested in filling it out?
I really think there's so much data correlating the fact that increased length results in decreased
Yeah.
respondent.
And a lot of people automatically, you know, they get so many surveys from like, the hospital, they get from whatever. I know myself, I like to ask me, can you want to take a survey? It's always no. I don't want, you know, don't want to spend my time doing it. I did this one though.
Yeah.
But, I think that's some of it too. Some people just don't want to mess with it, you know what I mean?
Right,
So,
yes, but-
so we got to figure out that, let them know that this is, maybe before the survey comes out, maybe we can make announcements before it comes out, say we're gonna have the survey coming out. Please, this is gonna be really important for our city. And, you know, you wanna have a say in what goes on in the city, you need to fill out the survey. So maybe we need to like broadcast it for a few weeks before it goes out.
Yeah, I think it's all great feedback.
If I just add a couple of things with that is, you know, when I was in Monroe, we did a couple of these surveys, and there was advance notice that was coming out. But also, you know, Mayor and I were talking today, the length of it was pretty, you know, overwhelming, I would say. And you just need to shorten it up. But one of the more interesting discussions when I was at one of our managers' conferences, okay, you know who votes on a regular basis? They're kind of probably more likely versed in the issues of the community. You know, try and get them hooked in there, but don't send them a big survey. Maybe tell them once a month you might get a survey question or 2. We just want to know what you're thinking, you know, that type of thing, so that it's not overwhelming, but you're getting continual feedback on issues on a timely basis that may be of benefit to council, so. But I do think, you know, we probably should start off with, you know, another survey here. It's probably been at least, 2 or 3 years, because those are usually on the front end, and get a sense of where it is, but probably, you know, provide some notice that it's coming, and then figure out the dress distribution, whether it's direct mailing or, well, certainly direct mailing and or certainly online as well, so.
100%. And the Survey Monkey, if you populate questions, it will run its analytics to inform how much time it would be expected to take. This one, the 8 questions was 8 minutes, just FYI, so pretty quick amount of time, even for a thorough, like, comment box set of responses.
When do you want your results? Because
I think it's up to council, really. I mean, to me, it's, you know, we're facing near-term priorities and discussions around how we're managing topics, and so, I mean, I'd let the process depict the timeline, but I don't see why we couldn't get something out well before August.
Well, I was gonna say, because Marcia suggested the election, but there's also the 4th of July.
There you go. See, that's another good shot.
Oh, yeah, that'd be a good place.
Going back to your question,
Yeah, please.
I think top 3 rather than 5, just to kind of filter it down a little more. That's my,
Anybody in a disagreement with that principal approach of taking us down to 3 versus 5? If you were to use, just because it would apply to other questions we might consider, right? If you were to use the top 3 approach, would you do it, just select all that apply, top 3? Or would you say force them to choose a 1, 2, and 3?
I'd
Meaning-
rather have a 1, 2, and 3 myself. That way, we know, then we'll know exactly what's our next priority that the citizens want.
So like a prioritized 3 is what you're saying?
I mean, yeah.
how will that show that this was that person's number 1, and this was that person's number 3?
Yeah.
You won't know. You won't know. It'll just be like a total. It's gonna be a total. But
Just
you,
'cause
but you
one-
know, but you'll know too, if all 3 of them are really important, the numbers are gonna be pretty even. You know, where if you got like one and 2 questions like really high and the other one's low. Of course, I don't know, would that work? I don't know if it'd work or not.
So it's something to explore on the methodology side, Katie, to your point on like what the analytics could show there, but
Right.
obviously we'd want to know where the priorities lie.
I see
Or some
Kat-
people only mark 1, if they like 1, they won't even bother with the other ones.
Right, right. Oh, there's Pat.
So in the line of thinking, right, just kind of, so we like top three as an approach over top five. Just taking a step back at the question itself, right? So kind of to Councilman Molnar's point, right, like, should we consider engaging an expert? Obviously, this was the question as it was written in the prior, city planner-driven survey work. But do we like that question, meaning positive aspects, to assess those, what makes Gibraltar special, kind of a theme?
Definitely.
Okay. Good evening, Councilman Valentine.
Good evening, sorry I'm late.
A motion to seat Councilman Valentine?
No, we can't, we don't vote in here.
I'm sorry?
We don't vote for anything in there.
Oh.
Oh.
We made a motion to excuse him.
I guess we did vote in there. I guess
Is
we
there a
did.
second on the motion to seat Councilman Valentine?
Second.
Second from Wood. Katie, can you call roll, please?
McNabb,
Yes.
Molnar,
Yes.
Schumate,
Yes.
Cosmore, I skipped you somehow. Wood,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Valentine.
Yes. I guess I voted on it.
Okay, so we're basically, George, do you have something to say?
Well, I have, are we good with Valentine?
Yeah.
Is that okay? I didn't want to interrupt all that. I had a question. Somebody was asking, when you're doing the survey, is this to everybody or just taxpayers, or how does that work? I don't know how you did it last time.
I believe we actually sent this to local community. I think Arthur had this sent to Woodhaven and Brownstown and beyond. I think it went further than just residents, which was even more surprising that we only got 271 responses. But I think that they had sent that out beyond as well.
Oh,
They did, it didn't go to my house, and I'm pretty close.
I think it was sent out via mail. Yeah.
We got 4 non-Gibraltar resident responses in the
That's what I
last.
gotta say, if you look at the thing,
Got it,
there's a
okay.
few, but there's most, it's, the majority of them Gibraltar.
I would, obviously, we could, up to council's discussion, I would recommend we focus on Gibraltar residents for the sake of the scope of the survey. So I would say any Gibraltar resident,
okay, any Gibraltar resident, okay.
unless council has any other objection to that. Okay, so for number 3, so basically, we're aligned on the demographics of age and how long have you lived here as important principal questions. We're aligned on the most positive aspects and focusing on top 3, and to the extent methodology could prioritize them, which we can look into. That would imply we want to put predefined answers, right? Is that what I'm hearing? Or would we want to open it up to a comment box? So you have an option of using like what was done in the master plan survey, like literally, it's a home where I grew up, small town atmosphere, it is affordable. You could use those. The nice part about using those is you get to compare the survey directly, right, to what previous responses were. The other option is go comment box, for which you could just open-ended. They could write whatever they want that comes to mind, so.
So one comment that I have is some of these follow-up questions that are after, the least favorable and most favorable, could they fit into pre-populated answers on least favorable and most favorable? Or could they be included in the comment box potential? Is there a way for those questions to be, those answers to be tailored into the answer choices?
For the ones that are listed in the,
Yeah, so you have about short-term rentals, RVs, food options. I see food options is already in, where did it go? It's in one of them. Yeah, it's already in the least favorable portion.
oh, I got you. So you're saying take one of the latter questions, right, which is more target assessment, yes, no on the other
Yeah.
areas, and loop them into the least or positive.
Right, because I feel like that's, again, we can change the pre-populated answers, and we could be inclusive of these things for both least favorable and most favorable, and have an opportunity to ask those questions without asking, it's the specific yes, no, like you mentioned.
I tend to lean to the yes, no, because it's a more direct assessment of the perspective, but obviously I'd love to open up to council discussion. Does everybody understand what's being asked there? So Councilman Molnar was saying in the latter questions, right, if you look on to page 2 and 3, page 2 and 3 proposed like a direct yes or no. So The city council took action to prohibit short-term rentals less than 30 days in the R1 residential areas of Gibraltar. Do you feel short-term rentals, example Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com, should be allowed in the R1 residential? I feel like that's most accurately represented as yes or no as a standalone question. But Councilman Mueller was saying another option to consider would be to pull that into positive or least favorable aspects. But that one, I'm not sure how that would fit well.
I would just add the word limited. I mean, the way it looks now, it's open-ended. It looks like we could do like at the city, and which there'd be like, no
Yeah,
way anybody would ever do that.
That's why I feel like it's a little suggestive there, because
Yeah, it
the
is.
responses we're gonna get are people who are adamantly against it, I think.
Yeah, it looks
So
like-
for that one, tweak the text to say, do you feel short-term rentals should be allowed in a limited or regulated capacity in R1 or something like that?
yeah,
Okay, yeah.
yeah, that's what I would do.
Okay. So we can come back to that, do we lump them in, but, what does everybody think about the list of questions, or list of responses for that positive aspect? Do we want to replicate what was previously done by including these predefined responses? So if you're on page 1, when the residents asked, what are Gibraltar's most positive aspects, select no more than 3. The list of answer choices or what was in the previous survey? So do we want to use that same list of answer options? Do we want to alter them, add or delete them?
I like them. But I also don't see a problem with having a comment box either.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention that too. I don't mind the comment box, because there's a lot of residents who, there's no way they're gonna come up here and talk, you know what I mean? And or they don't wanna call, but this is a good way for them to be able to tell us what they feel without having to like really talk to us. You know,
That's
because there
exactly
is a
it.
lot of people that doesn't like that, you know, but that'll give a chance to let them know how they feel, you know?
I like that, and I tend to feel like the comment box is the most pure way of assessing it, because then you're not reacting and going through a list of like, okay, I like this one. You're like literally whatever's on your mind, you're disclosing.
Gotta get more out of the comment.
Yeah.
So that's the question is like, would everybody, per that feedback from Councilwoman Cosmore, does everybody open to the idea of, rather than have pre-populated all these answer choices, having a comment box that allows the respondent to say whatever is on their mind?
Well, I don't mind having both. I mean, I think.
So you say both, so you say basically list
Some
the
people won't
options and
wanna
then
write
put
all the
another
comments.
comment box in there as other, you know?
Yeah, if there's
okay.
other, and give them an opportunity to say something that we might have missed. I mean, there might be something that all of us are totally missing that was like a really good idea, you know what I mean? So,
Okay,
So we're just putting on there a yes and no and comment.
well, yeah,
Box,
you
is that
just,
what you're
well, you
saying?
let them pick like, say, for instance, we let them pick like there's like 8 things there, and they can pick the top 3, and then they can comment if there's something they didn't see on the list that they liked.
yeah,
Right, okay. Yeah, it definitely should have a comment box, because
like it.
you're gonna wanna get a little bit of their perspective on why they're answering that way.
And I think just to make sure we're talking the same language, they're referring to what are the Gibraltar's most positive aspects? So you're a respondent, and you're gonna get a list of all these answer choices, right? Then they're gonna put a comment box that says other. So if there's something that you don't like here, or wasn't reflected there, you have an option of putting whatever you want in there. That's separate from page 2 or 3, just wanna be clear.
Okay.
right.
Do we want this to be this lengthy? I mean, we wanna put all these things out there?
That's really the discussion we're having now, is do we wanna use the pre-populated ones, or do we wanna not?
Because when you're asking for a survey, people don't want to sit down with 10 pages and read and write and whatever. They want to be able to go, yes, no, okay, I don't like this because whatever. I just think this is a lot, and, you know, it takes time for people to answer this. You know, I think if it was shorter, at least, I don't know, half as much.
50 people made
Or if you
comments.
can put some of the
That's pretty
things
good.
together,
Yeah,
some of the questions together, not, like, okay, this is where I grew up, it's small town atmosphere, it's affordable. Maybe you can put some of those things in one box and, instead of all separately. I don't know, I mean,
well, yeah, so this would just be just be one question, so those are just listed, so you'd go through and you'd say, okay, these are my top 3.
yeah. I'm just saying, I think it's a lot. I don't know that I would take the survey with all these questions, with all of this. Especially if you're just, what are you gonna go to the like you said, you had it in the gas stations, they're gonna take it home and they're gonna, what? And then after you fill it out, what are you gonna do with it? I don't know, I didn't do the last one, so I didn't even know about this one. So I'm not sure how it's working.
I think the previous survey was based on the master plan being put together at that time, and I'll let previous council members speak on that.
Yep.
This one, it seems we're focusing more on the topics that are before us or have been before us based on what's up in front of us right now. So the comment of maybe a continuing survey process has a couple questions throughout this time. You know, these things will pop up and then it'll give us something to comment on. I do think that that previous survey size, yes, would be discouraging to a lot of residents to want to fill all that information out, right? So they probably just decided not to. A shorter survey would be better based on the hot topics or that's before us.
Yep.
That's, you know, I think that's a valid consideration to get data so we can make decisions based on that.
100% agree, and I think what you're looking at in front of you is 8 questions versus 19 questions that were previously done, and would take 8 minutes based on the Survey Monkey. But we're just at a starting point of a discussion, so we could bring in experts, we could further refine. Just want to get the ball rolling in the dialogue of what's most important to us. It'd be awesome if council chooses to engage an expert on this, say, well, here's the 6 to 8 things that are most important to council, and they can help build the methodology and the question representation, if you so chose, to be as efficient and highest respondent capturing as possible. But I think this is a significant, less than half of what was previously put out.
What did you guys use last time? Because I wasn't on, I just knew somebody was on the committee, so that's why I
Yeah.
knew about it. But you guys use SurveyMonkey last time, or?
You know, I'm not 100% certain. I know we had paper versions. I don't know what we had electronic wise. Yeah, I don't recall. And granted, for something as important as the master plan, you know, we enacted it not even 6 months ago, and that's supposed to be our marching order to try and follow. But I agree, the responses that we have were wholly insufficient. So, you know, we talked multiple times about, you know, having 10-year plans and keeping a new 10-year plan every 6 months. This kind of feels like the beginning of that, and I don't want to hamper progress with trying to make sure we have every little detail defined, but I feel like this is a big project. But might as well start and improve the process as we go.
I think that's the beauty of it too. Like to Councilman Molnar's point, I think we had our, let's just take a step back, bigger picture, right? We had 10 goals for our first 100 days. We hit all 10 goals of what we set out to accomplish immediately, right? Now in your packet, right, you have a laundry list, this page, right, of what's next. 2 pages of priority topics to address as council, right? So I think we've done a phenomenal job in laying out a directional path of needs for which we've checked box after box after box on. I don't think we need to over-engineer this survey. The survey is designed to be 8 questions that are targeted sets of information, align with the priority topics we're gonna cover. And so that every decision we make, we could poll and say, okay, this was very important to the residents, or 78% said no to this topic, right? That's the logic here. It's a listening exercise for all those that don't wanna stand at that podium, that choose to complete it. It's significantly reduced in its volume, and it gives us a data set for our residents' voices to speak to when we make these decisions, so.
Yeah, I'd love to see a new one every year, just to start the new
Yeah.
year out and goals for that year, you know.
And I think just, you know, since the lengthiness is imperative, right? And that's why we're here to talk about this, right? But if you were to just kind of, as a council member sitting here, right? What age range? That takes you 5 seconds, right? How long have you lived in Gibraltar? 5 seconds, right? What are the most positive aspects? Yeah, sure, you might have to think about it, but you're screening a list of 10 to 15 different pre-ballot choices. Okay, check, check, check. I mean, at most a minute, 2 minutes. You know, see what I mean? So I know it seems like but the data would suggest it's pretty minimal in its duration of time to complete, right? And if that is deemed a hurdle, then let's talk about it. But I think we should, I know we're getting into the granularity. I think we should just give this a chance to go through the content together, question by question. Then we could say, nope, we don't need this question, or this is not important to us, we could bounce it to experts, because that's what they do day in and day out to do surveys, if we so choose, which we'd incur cost on, and attempt to get this out to as many residents as possible with a community that I feel is quite engaged.
So, one question comes to mind right when we're saying that is, I guess, what is the purpose then of the first two questions if we're not gonna do anything with that data? What age range do you fall in, and how long have you lived in Gibraltar? If there's no action to be associated with those two line items, what's the purpose behind there?
I think there's two things there. One is we can do some with the data. So the survey methodology and analysis tools allows you to subcut. So you could assess all of your responses against age brackets, meaning younger population feels this way, older population feels this way. You could do that analysis. You could also assess priority topics against presence or, duration of residency in Gibraltar.
You
So
know, so if you have like,
you can analyze the data based on those.
So
two.
in which case, we could put a value on somebody who's lived here for 30 years would have a higher value than somebody who had lived there for, 10 years.
I don't know if it's necessarily putting a value as much as just being able to interpret the data and understand different demographics and how they've responded to your data.
I mean, it gives us information, like for that one, it would give us like how long people really do stay in this area. You know, it's not a high turnover, we know that.
Yeah.
And as far as age group, that could drive what we do. If we have a huge senior population, then we're gonna need to put some more things into the senior program. If we have a huge population that's, it's like from 20 to 40 that's having kids, so that means we're gonna need to put some more things into like for children.
Don't we know the answers to that by looking at our census? This is just who's responding to the survey.
Yeah.
I think the census gives you that large data for sure. So we have population demographic data, right, as the census produces it. To me, the value of these is we can subcut the data. So we can look at what different demographics are staying in their responses, if it is relevant or not relevant to the topic. Again, for a data point that takes literally 5 seconds to capture.
And it also gives us, like I said, we know this last survey was answered mostly by, people from, what is this, 50 to 65, I think it is, or something. So that also gives you who's answering it. So that means we also need to look out for the ones that's not answering it, the age group, so.
Yeah. And we'd know like electronic versus print fill out, right? So we could also tie that data point to the demographic info to inform future communication distribution. Okay, so we talked about question number 3, and there's a feedback was use the populated responses, but have a comment box so that if somebody wants to put in something else, they can. Question number 4 is at the bottom of the page, and it spills over to the next page. So question number 4 is, question number 3 was positive aspects. Question number 4 is least favorable aspects. I'm assuming we'd apply the same methodology, so top 3 versus top 5, and a comment box. But any comments, concerns around question number 4, which again would be assessing least after we've already assessed most positive?
I mean, I think there's some things in the choices that we don't have a whole lot control over, like limited house, yeah, that's like I say, limited housing choices, it's on there, but we don't really have control over that too much. In the school district, we know we got a good school district, but I don't know, well, I guess we wouldn't want to know that.
And again, these are just the pre-populated responses from the last survey, so it doesn't mean we're must adhere to them, but the value would be in being able to compare survey to survey.
Yeah. Like, we don't have control either to distance to employment opportunities. I mean, that's not something we control either. I'd rather have questions in there that I know there's something, if we can do something about it.
So like, that great feedback, Councilwoman Cosmore, so you're saying like you could explore removing something like that? Like,
Yeah. I mean, it's just one less thing we have to read because we can't do anything about it.
And you feel that if you remove something like that, you could, if it was important to that resident respondent, they could put it in their comment box.
Because they will, people will, if they pull it up and they see like a huge old thing, question list they have to read, they're gonna want to bypass it. So, I mean, why put it on there if we can't do anything about it?
Well, that was kind of that goes back to, so let's push on that, right? That was my original thought process was why have any of these? I think Dorothy was reacting to the same thing. Why have any of these predefined options? Why not just put it in a comment box? And then you can, literally somebody writes in their top 3. Then there's no bias, you're not pre-populating anything, you're just literally open canvas. Councilwoman Cosmore, what are the 3 most positive aspects of Gibraltar? You're not looking at anything, you're not going, because I think part of what Dorothy's reacting to earlier as well was there's the length here is because you're looking at a table of response populations, right? So if that's what was visually overwhelming versus a little comment box that you could write in whatever you wanted, then
Well, I will say some people don't.
Exactly.
if that, so that's what you're referring to, and that was something that Vince and I were talking about in the office today before we were coming in to brainstorm on. I'm a big believer in the comment box approach, because then there's no bias. Right now, as a human, when you go and take this survey, you're now reacting. So something's higher on the list or lower on the list, you're seeing it higher or lower. So you're asking me to choose top 3, I'm getting biased by every single one I read, versus I'm not looking at anything. Just Councilwoman Cosmore, what's most important to you about Gibraltar? And then you're writing it in, right?
Yeah, but I will say there will be a lot of people that don't want to write it in, that would rather check a box and just go faster.
I'm less likely to do a survey if I have to type it out. I just want to
So,
select.
again,
People just don't want to have to write it in, you know what I mean?
these are the pros and cons, of
Then
course.
you just like to,
I
they like to
think
hit
that you
the
need to
check
shorten
mark.
this. This needs to be shortened. If you
Yeah,
want
we need to shorten that one. That's way too-
responses,
too many.
then you can't have all these 25 responses where everybody's going to sit there and read all this. You know, it needs to be short and sweet and get to the point. This is what we like, this is what we don't like.
Yeah.
You know, and you can still have a comment box if they want to add, I don't know, good comments, bad comments, whatever.
Yeah, that's why I
But
said on
this
here,
is
that's
a
why I
lot.
said on this list, I think we could probably cut it down a lot, because there's a lot of things we can't do anything about. And if they wanted that included, they could put it in the box,
Okay.
you know? Even like the flooding, we don't have, I mean, with the berms, we could try, but we live next to the water, that happens. I mean, there's, you know, you knew that when you moved here, that you live in Gibraltar, you're gonna have flooding, you just.
We live in the swamp.
We knew that when we bought our house, we knew we were gonna have, you know, water, we're gonna have to deal with that, but it was worth it to live here, so.
And I love this because this is the brainstorm opening discussion we're having on this, right? So if the takeaway is consolidate down the options, which I hear is the takeaway, and include a comment box, then we can talk about next steps before we leave this discussion. But
Because not everybody's going to be on a computer or however you're putting this out there, you know?
Exactly.
So, I don't know, if you're going to put this out like in the gas station, you want somebody to pick this up, they're going to say, look at that, just look at the questions, like,
Yeah.
okay.
And to the
not
earlier
that
We
point,
are
we
gonna
could,
have probably more than 3/4 of it's gonna be on the computer. I'll make a bet with that.
Are these topics something that, I mean, most of us probably interact with people throughout the community on a regular basis on anyway? You know, in our interactions in social environments, you know, we, you know, are having these discussions with people that know that we're a voting member of council. You know, we get into these discussions on a regular basis, and we get one-on-one polling opportunities with people that we discuss these items with on a regular basis. People who probably won't fill out the survey, but they will engage in a one-on-one with any one of us that catches us at the gas station or, you know, wherever we're out and about.
yep.
So we're by not taking that data into consideration, but taking this into consideration, I think there's a potential flaw there. But I don't know how to get over it, so just food for thought.
Well, following up on what you said before, kind of what is the bottom line of this? We know the most favorable thing is the water. That's why everybody's pretty much here. You know, it's the water. It's a small town. We get all that. What's the least favorable? You know, you got rid of all of our stores, our whole downtown area. We really don't have anything here. We have some vacant buildings. We're not working on, like, trying to fill those up or, I don't know. That's least favorable, I think. We like the small town atmosphere. That's why we're here. That's why we all stayed here. So I'm thinking like our planning commission, I don't know, isn't that something they're supposed to do? Like, find out why we have vacant buildings and why we aren't fixing up the gas station and why we aren't doing a lot of these things?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Track businesses in.
Yeah, but I think the goal is to generate the data, but just on that note, right, to your point, right, we could all sit here and say, like, water is the most important thing, right? But if you look at the data, right, small town atmosphere was number one, followed by safety of our neighborhoods and our community, right? So that's the importance of this data, is we can apply analytics from anonymous survey data to say, like, okay, here's another perspective on X number of respondents that completed the survey, right? So I hear
Yeah,
you.
but don't you think that's why we're here? I don't think you need to ask people these questions. They know why we're here. That's the whole point of coming here. Why else would you come here? You know, if you wanted a bigger city, or if you didn't want to be by the water, this is where you're coming. I don't think you need to ask them those questions. Like, what else could we do to enrich our city? What else would you want to see here?
That's
Those kind of questions, because we have nothing. We have restaurants, we have all these things. This is wonderful. We have, you know, the start of something good here, but our whole downtown area is just gone, and that's sad. You know, now I realize there's stores up at Kroger and whatever. Nobody likes sitting at the train tracks trying to get your ice cream home before it melts, whatever. You know, we used to have the small town feel was what we had, the stores and everything here. I understand that that's long gone, you know, but there must be something we can put here. You know, the drugstore's gone. Everybody used to like to go buy a birthday card. Now you have to drive to God knows where just to find a card, for crying out loud, you know? Why can't we have certain things here? I'm not understanding that.
So that's important, so let's carry that thought process further, right? So then, as it relates to the survey, because you just hit on it, right? This is what we're trying to do, assess residents' perspectives on important topics in Gibraltar. So you're saying.
What do you want to see here? It's just like,
Well,
But
but-
you
but-
also have to
but-
have-
Question.
the business has to be able to make money
Right.
in order to be here, and
well,
if we
yes,
don't
and that's,
use it, and if the residents don't use that and go somewhere else, and because,
Yes.
I know when I first moved here, there was only the drugstore there was that little strip mall like that had the beauty hair, the hair place, that had
But
the
everything
dentist or
was
whatever.
here.
But then while the stuff got built in Brownstown, it kind of like killed off the IGA that was here.
So if I might make a suggestion then.
however, the plan, you know, for the RV park and all that kind of stuff that planning is talking about up, you know, across from the trailer park, it needs to be something. It needs to be something that brings tax money here. It can't be just an RV park or something like that. We need to actually bring money here.
But this is important, so Dorothy, so one of the later questions, because I think I want to make sure we're getting progress
I'm the
here.
only one, I'm the
No,
only
no.
one talking.
No, I'm with you.
Dorothy,
That's gonna have
I'm
to be something they can
100%
make
agreeing
money.
with you, but to be fair, what you're just suggesting now is already captured in the study guide. We have a question on what is missing. So are you saying don't assess? What's your proposal then for that? Are you saying don't assess the positive aspects?
Well, I think we already know what the positive, just put out that, you know, basic question, like not all of this, just shorten that. You know, you like living in the city because why? Here, whatever, that type of thing. I don't think it needs to be just detailed, you know, like, what do we have on, we know it's the small town atmosphere. Is it affordable? That depends on if you're on the water or not, take your pick.
So, so then, and I want to make sure we're all like progressing here, right? So what I suggested was a way to reduce that, what you're just talking about, is just leave it a comment box, right? So you're saying leave it a comment box, meaning what is the most positive aspects? Why is it special? Let people write it in. That's what you're saying. Is that?
Yeah, I know Katie, you know, mentioned that people don't want to write a whole comment, but, you know, we don't need a paragraph, we don't need a story, we just want kind of
Okay.
your opinion. You know, do we need something here? What do you think we need in the city?
All right, so-
So,
we could go, I don't want to go back and forth on it, but I guess if
I
we're,
don't-
is there next steps? If there's an expert required, if we all choose, to guide us on the value, the pros and cons of including pre-populated responses or using a comment box, like, we can use that as a next step discussion. All right, so we've gotten through number 3 and number 4. The feedback is both sides. Some people say put pre-populated, some people say don't put pre-populated, it looks too long or it's not of value. So we'll apply that thought process to 3 and 4. For number 5, Question number 5, it's below the table on page 2. Vince and I were talking about this today, that's why it's included in your study guide as a topic to consider. I think there would be a lot of value in including this question, and I'll tell you why I think it's valuable. The question is, what statement do you agree with more? Statement 1, Gibraltar's future should be focused on providing more for those that are already here. Or statement 2, Gibraltar's future should be focused on creating and developing destinations that attract more visitors. Why I feel like a question, I'm not saying, I'm not an expert in designing questions, so this is just a thought process. Why I feel this is an important question to assess on, whatever we decide upon or whatever expert recommendation we receive, is because it helps us establish an operating philosophy for the path ahead. I hear, as all of you have said, a lot of feedback on we want to preserve the gem, we like the small town atmosphere, we don't want a bunch of expansion, et cetera, et cetera. I also hear on the other side, a lot of great investments in the city and appetite for that. So I think this question is so important to me because it gives us a read on what the resident population wants. Do they want Gibraltar to retain and just unlock opportunities for those that are already here? Or do they want to have more development or activities that attract more visitors? I think that's an important philosophical question to answer.
If you start bringing more visitors, though, you know, we have a very small safety department, fire department. The more visitors, the more people, the more, you know, I think that's one of my concerns with having short-term rentals, because we don't have enough of, you know, enough people here, working here at the city. We don't have enough DPW people for all of these things. It takes people, if you want to bring visitors in and decide what they're going to look at or what they're going to do, I mean, that takes up parking, that takes up all kinds of things. So, I don't know. I mean, I think residents here would like to have more things in the city for themselves, like we used to, but, you know, I mean, I don't know if the economy is that anymore, you know, small stores, but a lot of little towns still have stores and things like that. I mean, Trenton has a whole street of stores down there, so I don't understand why we couldn't do that. And we have Jefferson that goes right through the town. I mean, that's a lot of traffic coming from Monroe and back and forth. Why wouldn't there be any opportunities there?
I hear you and appreciate that. I think just to take a step back, this is more about the question. We want the residents' perspective on all of those answers, right? I'm saying, do you agree with the question?
The question,
I
well,
think this is
yeah.
the most important question on here, and maybe it should be number 1 instead of
Yeah,
whatever.
it's a good question, I agree.
I feel it's a really important question. Go ahead, sorry.
To me, I feel like that should be an obvious answer that probably 100% of people that live here are going to say, I would rather it be focused on us as opposed on bringing people to share what we have.
Changes everything then. That changes our whole perspective. If that's what they say, then that's what we have to
And I
do.
want to.
Isn't that obvious? I mean,
wanna
isn't it probably a given that we're gonna get
know if it's
100%
obvious.
response?
I want to challenge council right now, though. Here we are we're talking about a survey design, yet every question we go through, we're hypothesizing what our residents want. I mean, literally. I'm asking us to please take a step back. Rather than say, here's what all of our residents are going to answer the question with, this discussion is designed to say, we don't have that data. What are the questions we want to ask to get the residents' perspectives? So how can we say X% are going to say this, or X% are going to say this, or X% want this, or we don't have that data? I'm asking council to review the questions that I'm putting in front of you to say, let's go get our residents' perspectives on these topics. Let's not tell the residents that we know all the things that they want or don't want.
I think on that question, I would add where you said Gibraltar's future should be focused on creating and developing destinations that attract more visitors and businesses should be added to it.
What,
Because a lot of people realize that without businesses, we don't have tax dollars, and they want the taxes to go down.
What property do we have that we can open up for businesses? We're very limited.
Yeah.
We got
are
that old
limited.
doctor,
We are
that old
limited.
bank is open, but other than that, what else is there? Where else can anybody else go? Where can anybody else build?
You have all that, you have property on Jefferson.
Along Jefferson.
We have, I would challenge that. We have several properties or infrastructure opportunities that could be
I'd like
addressed.
to comment, but the planning commission side, I don't think it's the planning commission side of attracting business. I don't mean to go down a separate rabbit hole, but I think that's more of a economic development director or something along those lines that pursues those on behalf of the city. It wouldn't be the planning commission. The planning commission is making recommendations to the council on zoning issues or ordinance things, those kind of things, not necessarily generating tax dollars or trying to attract business.
But we don't have economic developers here.
I know, and I,
Just saying.
I'm go-
and if, no, and it's, please, if we want to put economic development as a topic, we can do that in our open discussion. I want to focus on the resident survey right now and the questions we have in front of us. So the resident survey, which statement do you agree with more? There was feedback from Councilwoman Cosmore on more visitors/businesses as a tactical word suggestion. Any other feedback on that question there?
What about a third response saying, you know, essentially nothing? Instead of, you know, these two questions are what can the city of Gibraltar government do for us? Can it provide more, or can the city of Gibraltar government prevent more? What about just keep going status quo? You know, just free market.
Talk to me how you want that framed as like a bullet or a statement there. I'm not sure.
I don't know, I feel like these are both two leading questions that give people two answers on a particular thing. What do you want your future, A or B? And C, D, E, F, G, I feel like there's a lot of other things that people can jump in and,
Well, they would have their comment box if they wanted something other than those two.
So I was just gonna ask if we could just have a box, this is other, and let's see.
Okay, okay, yeah, so there you go. So which of the following statements do you agree with most could be the question. And then Councilman Molnar, if I'm hearing correctly, the third could be a comment box. They could put in their own statement.
Or you could put the third bullet point could be neither. I don't like either one of those answers, I mean.
Not applicable.
If I may say something?
Yeah, please.
If you looked over the past ones, a lot of people stated that it wouldn't change. So if you just put, don't want to change anything, is that about what you're saying, Mr. Molnar?
yeah, kind of,
Some people through the past ones said they didn't want to change anything.
right, and change is going to be is the one thing that's a constant, right? There's a change because we have laws we have to comply with, we have conditions we have to comply with, we have economic conditions we have to apply with. These are two questions that can be, you know, asked without taking in context all the different pressures that we see on a regular
There
basis.
might be some people that don't agree with either one of those.
That-
They'll just put,
So that's where we could go neither as an option or none of the above, and we could
I'll
go.
put neither and have an option.
So we could do none of, we could solve this problem, I think, pretty easily, which is none of the above as a third option, and a fourth option is comment box.
Yeah.
Write your own script. And then you're not, then you give, and we could even start with those, or start with your own, then these two, randomized order, there's a million ways you could do that.
What does providing more for those that are already here even mean? What do we provide more of?
I think it was going to the lines of what our feedback, like what Dorothy was saying, which is like, residents' voices that have expressed an appetite for more things in Gibraltar, whether that's a drugstore or a restaurant or whatever that may be.
But how do you differentiate between what things are gonna be more for our residents and what things people from out of town are gonna come use? So if we had a tanning bed downtown and somebody from Brownstown wanted to use it, is that A or B? I mean, people from Gibraltar would use it, it's for them, but if somebody from Brownstown, I just don't, I guess I don't quite understand.
So it's like, basically, your feedback is like define it more so that it's more specific in what that means.
Yeah, because when I looked at it, I'm thinking park, things for the park for the kids.
Right, you're
What am I
thinking one
meant?
thing, you're
Yeah.
thinking one thing, I'm thinking one thing.
Yeah, I like that. So expanding that to define it more specifically as to what.
Or even not providing, but just letting us exist. I don't need the government to provide something for me, per se. I just want to be able to live.
Yeah, okay.
If I might just offer on the first one, because I do like you know, the contrast of the two. But if the first one was to say Gibraltar's future should be focused on maintaining its character in a very general sense, you know, there's always gonna be the change, but how you can have change and still maintain the character of the community without, and it gives you a focus as, okay, we're focused on maintaining character, because that, and it's probably gonna be validated with one of the earlier questions that you might have, but it does give you a hard, feedback, that this is what we should be focusing on, rather than, you know, trying to chase something down that, may or may not be what the community wants.
Yeah, I like that.
I like that. Okay, any other feedback? And again, this is just a starting point. This doesn't mean we're leaving this with like, okay, here's our survey. We'll talk about next steps, but it's good feedback to get us all on the same page about content.
I think mainly you're gonna get more of a pushback
Huh?
on too much change. You're gonna get more of a pushback on the citizens than anything. They came to this town because of what it is.
Which would then relate to the maintaining its character option, and then,
Character, keep it what it is, and as far as snaring business, like somebody can say, okay, we would love to have the drugstore and all these businesses back. Well, how are you gonna snare these businesses? They're gonna come here and build, and then it's gonna fail because now you got 3 more empty buildings that just didn't take off. You can't, there, like he says, the economic part of it, there's a lot to it, a lot of
100%.
planning.
I like it a lot, and I think I'm gonna capture all these notes, and then when we talk about next steps, we can figure out ways to further refine that, or Councilman McNabb, like caveats that are important to that ask, which is, I think, a very good segue to the next question, which is what is missing? Now, that couldn't be any more straightforward, in my opinion, of giving people an opportunity to just lay out what they feel is not present in our city that they would like to have. But that was another question I proposed. What is Gibraltar missing? And I would suggest that's an open comment box.
Yeah, me too, yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
This survey, how are people going to respond to this? If it's on the computer, this is SurveyMonkey, is that what you're planning on using?
We're gonna talk about that together, but yeah, SurveyMonkey is an option for sure, but then we could have print methods, there are a multitude of ways we could do
Yeah,
it.
well, how are people going to make the responses recorded? How are they recorded?
So SurveyMonkey will capture that
Even
electronically.
if somebody types something in?
Yeah, so SurveyMonkey will capture it with the type in, like the comment boxes or the selection of a box, and then we could have print for those that don't wanna go online. But what is Gibraltar missing? Seems to be a pretty straightforward question. I don't know if anybody reacts to that.
How do we limit it to, how do we know who's responding to these surveys? How do we know that it's a Gibraltar resident? How do we know that, you know, who filled out the survey?
That first question, we can't guarantee it, you know what I mean? But if we ask them right up front, are you Gibraltar?
Yeah, but what stops me from doing 5 of them?
I don't know, does SurveyMonkey have where you can limit, it would just have to go by your,
It's a good, well, no, it's a good push. I think it's just,
go on 5 different emails and turn it in 5 different surveys.
I think there's probably IP address or other considerations there for methodology, but it's a good push. So
Yeah,
that,
but if I do a hand one, I mean, I
no,
don't
so-
know who's gonna take the time to do that, but.
Right, but I was gonna say,
I
the
don't-
comment is, people didn't want to fill out the original survey, what's
Yeah.
gonna make them want to fill out 5 of them?
I would hate that there'd be a world where people are defrauding a city survey to do right by the residents, but if that's the case, then that's the world we live in, I guess.
Touche, all right.
I have
Go
one
ahead.
comment,
Yeah.
somebody types into me, and I don't know who these people are, so it says, let's see, how about they attach the survey to the water bill, because that's the only time people speak up.
Hey,
So then we know it's a taxpayer, we know it's a resident, and there you
I
have
think we
it.
said that before, yeah, the
Yeah.
water bill's perfect time.
the water bill would be a perfect way, and then we could supplement it other ways. Yes, so 100%. Thank you to the comment.
I have no
We
idea who
agree
it was.
wholeheartedly in the opportunity there.
But if you look at this last survey and all the issues with the water bill, you're hitting it with the angry time. They're gonna be angry when they get that.
We'll probably get a copy of their water bill with the survey.
With
Well, but to be fair, I mean,
No, it's fair.
I understand where you're coming from on that, but we did, I mean, Vince did a really nice presentation about the water topic, and we're making moves to try and address the concerns as best we can, so I hear you on that.
Survey, you can see it was listed in there a lot. And, but that's great, I mean, anytime.
It's a concern.
we could-
It's a
anytime we
concern.
could Save money with mailing, already mailing the tax bill, that'd be, or the water bill, that's smart.
All right, so what is Gibraltar missing? Is there any objections to that question? Any proposed refinements, caveats, comments? Okay. Next question, and it'll be the last one, well, second to last one, but the only thing I'm putting in front of you here was, I think we ran into the topic. So planning just took action around an applicant, right, as it relates to a larger RV park, right? Planning chose to not include that RV park in the path ahead, or at least recommend that to council, right? But we don't have any resident data there, so we could all defer to the people we talked to or the individuals that showed up to comment. But this section was intended to provide clear yes or no resident perspectives on hot topics we know the city is facing. So I would propose that you have these 3 bullets, or any others that council would choose, which is, again, the first one. City council took action to prohibit short-term rentals. Do you feel short-term rentals should be allowed in the R1 residential area under limited or regulated manner, right? Yes or no? That way, when the short-term rental company or committee, if they chose, came back to planning or council and said, hey, we want you to consider putting in this language in your zoning ordinances, then we could say, okay, well, X% of the residents said yes or no. This is the practical application, I think, of this survey. Second question, do you feel RV parks should be allowed in the city of Gibraltar? Again, we don't have the large-scale resident data to substantiate what the residents say. I hear lots of people saying no, but I'm sure there could be people that are saying yes. Who knows? The data is designed to capture that, so that when people are weighing those decisions, they can say yes or no, and we could say 70% said yes or no. That's the logic of these targeted questions. The third one is, and this one could be refined as you choose, but do you feel we have adequate food options for our residents in Gibraltar? You can make that whatever you want. It could be foods, businesses, or you could delete it because you feel like it's been addressed by what is missing. Does that make sense for this section?
I think the first bullet is a little harsh. I think maybe Gibraltar City residents, no, Gibraltar currently has ordinances that prohibit the short-term rentals. I think saying the
Ordinances,
city council took action to prohibit.
yeah,
This is the-
ordinances currently prohibit, I like that, Councilman Valentine, that's great.
Well,
All right, so ordinances currently prohibit short-term rentals, and then Councilwoman Cosmore added, should be allowed in a limited or regulated fashion in R1. Does everybody like the short-term rental in the RV park? Yes or
I
no?
think the RV park, you should probably put limited to, or small or something. Because that, when
So-
you read that, it sounds like it's
So
a
thresholds.
huge one.
What about the third bullet? Is that something that you feel like is already gonna be captured in what is missing? Do you feel like that's an important one? Or any other topics you'd add to these yes or no questions?
I think that one's nay on that.
Nay?
I mean, because,
Because I think it'll be.
what
cap-
could we really do with that,
think it-
though?
well, I
Because
think
we
it'll be
don't have
cap-
nothing we can do with that.
It'll be captured in the what is missing if it is relevant, right?
Yeah,
Meaning
I
it'll
mean-
be captured in the prior question. So I think I like the first two because they're very direct
Well, because
on.
that's something that we have control over. The third one, I mean, we don't have control of, like, restaurants
Love it.
coming in, I mean,
All right, and then the last question is there anything else you'd like to share? I think that's always a good practice to include in a survey. If there's something that wasn't addressed via the questions, you could leave a comment box for those that choose to use it. All right, so council, so we've gotten through 8 questions. I've taken notes on all the different feedback for each of these 8 questions. Is there anything else content-wise we wanted to cover before we talk about, get your feedback on what next steps could be for this? All right, council, what do you see as next steps? We got feedback. Does council feel like we should be pulling in an expert on surveys for this? Does council feel like we have what we need to lock down a path ourselves?
You think it wouldn't be cost prohibitive to mail these surveys to everybody and include a self-addressed stamped envelope so we can get the returns back? Make it easy for us to get our returns?
I think it's that would be a lot of money. You could,
It's,
I mean, we have the drop-off box up here, where they could drop it off in the box. We could also include, if we do the mailing, like the water bill mailing, a lot of people prefer using it on the computer, so we could just put on there, here's the paper copy, or
QR
go to
code.
this address and, you know,
Yeah,
just
but
and
if
fill it out.
we just do the mail to just Gibraltar residents, we should ensure that we just get responses from Gibraltar
Right.
residents.
Yeah, but if you send a stamp with every single one, how many would that be? 5,000 or stamps? that-
Amy,
cents
Katie, any
apiece.
perspective on cost, just
I
generally
think it'd be
speaking?
very expensive.
Very expensive.
Even just sending out water bills
And half
probably
of
is
them
gonna
wouldn't use
increase
it.
our cost, because our water bills are postcards, we would have to do envelopes for every water bill. So it would also be time as well to stuff all those envelopes.
How many accounts do we have?
I'm not sure offhand.
So we could do, there's a lot of different ways we could tackle this. Even if you put it in the water bill, right? You could also do a QR code.
Yeah.
And the people could scan that with their phone,
Or, yeah, or-
right? And then it takes them electronically. I mean, just about everybody's got a cell phone for those that don't. You know?
Honest about QR codes, I mean, I am in my early 40s and I cannot figure out how to work them half the time.
I'm with you.
All right, guys, I'm 63, I use QR codes.
My phone doesn't have the app. I'm not sure how to even go about it.
About
1,500?
ballpark, you have about 1,500 water accounts. So I think there's a lot of ways we could cut and slice this. So let's just kind of, okay, so it sounds like we're on the distribution topic, right? So far, people said Twitter, Facebook, or any other social media. So we could go wide on that, right? Water bill inclusion, we could do that. Copies at local businesses,
Yeah, and our
That.
newsletter, included in our newsletter.
newsletter, could include that.
You attach a link to our webpage, and it'll take you right to the survey monkey.
There you go. Obviously copies in City Hall. We have a lot of residents coming in. We could ask them to take a few minutes as they're standing there, paying whatever, or interacting with the personnel in the office.
Yeah, and you can make sure you have it, like at the, at, community center, make sure we have it up there and see if local businesses will put like a flyer type thing up. Or they would take them to the, the email address or the
Okay.
survey address. You can have that through the city, so that way,
All right.
like I said, it'd be nice, the 4th of July, if we had it dive there, we could just do a booth at the 4th of July and have people filling it out.
I love that. So I'm not a survey expert by any means. I just want to put this on the table so that people could react to something, right? And I feel like we've gotten a good discussion going. What does council see as a next step? One option could be we could look for an expert. Now, it's going to cost us money, but we could look for an expert, right? The other option is I can collate all this feedback that we've shared and then send copies back, and we could talk about it next Monday, council meeting, or whenever you're ready to do that, right? As a next step, how does the council want to proceed
I
from
mean,
this?
this is pretty small. I think we could probably do our own on Survey
I
Monkey.
would think so too.
Not,
We
it's
just
not
have a
that
little
hard.
committee get together and accumulate all the responses, and let's add them up.
Okay, so I guess let's start there. So I'm hearing pretty unanimously or majority council say do this on our own because it's pretty straightforward and small.
My opinion is an expert, and I think that some of these are, what do you do with the data? I feel like it's specifically targeting a couple of hot topic items with 3 direct questions on items that are in front of us, or a couple of questions that are in front of planning or in front of council in some fashion. And the other ones, what do we, how are they going to, if we have 105 people out of 271 that think there's a lack of shopping and dining options, what do we do about that? And if that 105 out of 271 is really 200 out of 5,000, what's our action associated with that? You know, what, I'm not convinced that the short, and it feels like there's 2 or 3 direct items in here that we want to get an answer to that is going to, we're going to lean on the subjective data associated with this to make our decisions. And I'm very cautious of that. And ultimately, if that's what everybody decides, I think that process is pretty subjective. My opinion.
The subjectivity, sorry, I'm trying to better understand. So where's the subjectivity, because it's a resident's voice.
Yeah.
So where's,
Well,
because it'd be a resident voice percentage basis, so where's the subjectivity in the resident voice there?
Yeah, it's my opinion. You know, I understand if anybody has an opinion that differs, I get it.
No, I'm just trying to better understand where the opinion's coming from. Like, what would be subjective about it?
I think that when you ask questions that are, you know, that are driven towards hot topic items, that we're wording them subjectively without expert analysis as to, you know, how do we, what are we trying to get and why? I feel like we're shooting from a couple of issues that are hot topics, and we want to have a crutch to lean on for why we do what we do. I don't feel like it is very objective, what do the residents want from us and why, because we wouldn't ask direct questions on that. It would be a broad canvas for them to paint, and then we would take it. Instead of putting items, we want you to answer this question, because there are things in front of us. I think that's where subjectivity comes into place, rather than giving them a blank canvas and saying paint.
I hear you on that for this two sub-questions, but for the majority of the survey, what is most positive, what is least favorable, what is missing? I mean, those to me are a lot of open canvases for people to speak up on those topics. But again, I want to make sure it's a wide discussion. So council, initially you had said, do this on our own. Let's make sure everybody's voice is here. Councilman Molnar is saying, bring in an expert. Talk to us.
I'm just trying to save some money for the city. I mean, an expert's gonna cost money. Survey Monkey's probably gonna cost money, right?
I have a survey account.
I
so
don't think they're gonna do it for free.
I have a Survey Monkey account we could use. It's allow us to do this for free.
Okay, I don't know anything about it.
I'm just
Yeah,
saying. out there.
I'm in agreement. I don't love the idea of spending a bunch of money on this, but I fear that if we're going to lean on, data that's flawed, then there's an expense associated with that, you
So
know.
then what, you want, like, to leave an open question, though? I know, these are the questions, these two are like kind of up, coming before us, and we're just, to me, like, they probably do need to be included, because we're making decisions on them.
But
And I know
making-
we're only gonna get a percentage of the residents, but there's not much, I'm not sure what else we could do to get the information. I mean, we talk one-on-one to people, but that's still a small percentage.
But are we gonna start doing this for every issue that comes in front of council? We're going to do a public opinion poll on?
We could.
Yeah, okay.
One more thing. This third point, what are Gibraltar's most positive aspects? Actually, I take all these out and just have them fill in what theirs are. And what is least favorite, take all those out, let them fill in what their least favorite things are. Instead
That was a
of
discussion
giving them
we-
all these choices.
That's a discussion we had earlier, was like, do you do a comment box or do you do pre-populated options? Here's what I might suggest. So, Councilman Molnar, appreciate that feedback. Council, appreciate the feedback. Let me pull all this together into one document, number one. Number two, I will explore, I have market research experts I work with regularly, right? That we could engage or have come speak to us or whatever that may be. Because I agree, we don't want any bias in the questions. I just don't want to over-engineer this and pay for a bunch of work if it's a very straightforward, simple survey. So maybe we do that. Let me collate everything. Let me recirculate it with council. I'll come back to you with some experts that we could talk to, or Councilman Molnar, if you have any experts that you know in this area, just to get a gut check to see, make sure we're not producing leading questions or any perspectives, right, at a cost efficiency, and then we can figure out where we want to go from there. Meaning how comfortable we feel with where we're landing and when we want to distribute it. Does that sound fair? So I can promise an update by next Monday, the 8th.
So when we get this survey completed and tallied and whatnot, then what happens? We just know what
Then we
people
take a look
want,
at it.
or, I mean, what are we gonna do with it after that?
Well, I think that was the earlier discussion.
But, yeah, and now we're changing all this, so, you know, we've done surveys, tons of surveys, and nobody's ever changed anything. Things just stay the same as they are anyway, so,
I'm not sure I agree.
Well, this is a different
Yeah,
administration.
I mean, Councilwoman Wood,
Okay.
with all respect, right? I feel like we've gotten a lot done in a very short period of time. I feel like we've been listening to residents, and this is a means of giving the residents a voice, because the residents are why we were elected to sit in these chairs, right? I think it's critical to do that.
and I agree 100% with everything you just said. I do. I believe everybody here has done an excellent job. I'm just saying that we kind of do this over and over, and, you know, we're here in Gibraltar, and this is, we live here. We like it here. I don't know if anybody really wants it changed. We talk about it all the time, but, you know, this is fine. We're gonna go ahead and do this. This is fine. Put your stuff together. I'm just saying, that's how I feel. People that live here like it and they stay, and you know, we've been here forever. People that don't like it, well, they leave. Simple as that, you know? Like, I'm just being honest. I'm just being
We're trying to give
honest.
the residents a voice.
I don't know if it's that simple.
They can have a voice. They can come up here. You can put a complaint box out there.
I know,
You can put
but
all
I
kinds of things.
don't think
So-
I don't think everybody feels comfortable speaking up at the podium, right?
You
Number
put a
one.
complaint box out in the, I'm sure you'll have a lot of complaints, but
I would ask that we approach this with an optimistic mindset and see what the data says, and then hold us accountable, just like the residents are, and getting to action, which I think we've done a tremendous job at so far.
And I am very optimistic on it. I'm just telling you how I feel and how other people are gonna feel, that's all.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And I'll get all this information together, and council will see an update by March 8th, because we're together again next Monday. Next topic of discussion is building department. But before we get to that topic, as promised, we said we're gonna open up to public comment. So would anybody like to, from the public, provide any comment on building department and rental inspections? That's the next topic on our agenda.
I'll wait till after you guys are done. Maybe
Okay.
we should have one after.
Usually has two.
Okay, so council, there's two things I want to put in front of you today, that's in your packet provided by Katie, as well as I put in some, just kind of highlight notes in your study guide. The first one is going to be rental inspections. So if you look at from McKenna, Laura Gray, the email that's in your packet, it was her email, and then it was attachments that you'll see, obviously, in your packet. Simply put, there is a need for council to discuss the topic of rental inspections and give guidance to McKenna on how they manage said rental inspections. So
McKenna do the rental inspections?
they do, but they've came to us, so Vince, Chief Tangway, myself, Councilman Molnar, and others have been involved in discussions where McKenna has reached out to us basically saying that the high-level summary, and Vince, keep me honest on this data set, there's well over 800 rentals in the community. And for a period of time, there was not rental inspections being done on them. And so now that they're going through the process, I'm being very simple here, now that McKenna's in the building and going through the process of doing rental inspections, which is what they're supposed to be doing, according to ordinances and policies, right? Now they're doing that, it's waking up some dialogue around, whoa, why are we doing this? Or this hasn't been done before, why am I now being asked to do it? The fee structure for it, the frequency of it, the why behind it. So that's your backdrop, which is technically, according to ordinance and policy, this should have been done every year over year, right? It was not being done. We're now going through this backlog, and Laura from McKenna flagged it for Chief Tangway, Vince, and team, to say, hey, we're getting pushed back, like to stop and talk about it and make sure that we're aligned, because council can direct us in how they want this handled. So for example, as you can see here, there are 800 plus rentals in our community. Now, these are, one could be homes, they could be multi-unit complexes, right? So keep that in mind. And Councilman Molnar, Vince, Chief Tangway, keep me honest as I paint some of this backdrop. But Laura's working through that, and she came to us and said, hey, how do you want me to handle this? Do you want me to pause? Let us work through the ones that have already been notified? How do you want the letters to be managed? Meaning, you get a notice, then you get another notice, then you get a ticket, right? There's different procedural aspects here that I think we should talk about as a council. So I asked her to send a summary of the data, which is in front of you. I asked her to kind of acknowledge some of the backdrop. So for example, why are these even required? Why are they important, right? And I wanted to start there with council. So Councilman Molnar, Vince, Chief Tangway, I know you were all a part of some of that initial dialogue that led us to today, and just if anything you want to add, please go ahead and do so.
Well, they're important for the safety of the occupants, right? Make sure they have a fire detector, a smoke detector, stuff like, other things like that. Electricity's good, water's good. I mean, that's important for the people who are going to be renting these from these, some of these landlords are probably not the best of individuals.
How do we balance the interests of the tenant who wants privacy?
Interest of the, don't you think the tenant wants to be safe?
I think the tenant probably wants privacy.
I can answer that as a landlord, if I could jump in.
If you could just, because we said we'd like public comment on, so please come onto the mic, just, but again, I don't want it to be a back and forth, so if you
Yeah,
don't.
definitely not.
Will you share your
Brandon
perspective?
Dix, 30664, and I just went through an inspection, and I don't mind the inspection. I think it is, but for you to say all landlords are bad or most of them are
didn't say
bad,
all,
I don't like that.
Some are.
My house is beautiful that I rent, and I rent it for fairly cheap, and the people I rent it to works in many of these businesses around here. I guess what I'm against is I paid my $300. I thought the guy was fair. I got dinged on a couple things, I fixed it, and I got my certificate today. I disagree with 3 years now that I gotta ask my renter again to open her kid's bedroom up to look at a fire extinguisher. He's gotta check all the windows, open, she's got a 4-year-old kid, a teenage son and a teenage daughter, and they got to go through the rooms every 3 years to look at fire extinguishers. I disagree with that. As for saying the landlord is, got to make sure the house is safe. Well, if you're also a family, the family's got to make sure they're safe too. You can't put on a landlord to make sure my tenants' kids are safe. They got to take some responsibility themselves. So I'm against, once, maybe if there's a new person going in, then maybe another inspection. But for me to ask Leanne to open her house again in 3 years, for a stranger to come in and look at all the stuff, I don't like that. I had a conversation with the young lady that works there, and she says, well, part of being a homeowner is you don't have to do that. Well, I also don't put a renter and a homeowner on different levels. That is Leanne's house. Even though I own it, it's her house. So I don't like comments like that either. I thought that was a pretty sour comment to say, well, if you buy a home, you don't have to do this. But if you have a rental, yeah, you got to let strangers in your house. So that's my comment on the how often it should be done. So
It's condescending, yeah.
yeah.
I would agree with you that once that renter is, if they're for 5, 10 years, 15 years, just do the one in the beginning.
Absolutely, and that's all I
agree with
asked
that.
for.
Okay, so Brandon, first off, thank you. Thank you for coming in, paying, and getting all your certificates, number one, and two, for the feedback. So this is the exact discussion we want to have. So one suggestion is, Brandon is suggesting to council to consider is, if somebody's already in the home and has had a inspection completed, right? Brandon's saying, why did they have to get another inspection in 3 years? Unless there's a turnover in tenant, right, there's no inspection. That's what Brandon's asking for, is that correct?
That's correct.
So council, these are the types of things that you all,
I'm sorry, what do we do for the tenant that's been there for 15 years already and has been in the home for 15 years? Do we compulsory inspect that?
Let's grandfather this in.
so here's the other things, and I just want to get ahead of ourselves. Brandon, thank you. Was there anything else you wanted to
No,
address?
I'd like to take part of this conversation too. I mean, again, it's just.
Please.
As you said, I think if the tenant suggests it, then yes, but I know what you're saying, because again, you got people that's been in these houses for so long, and they don't want a stranger coming in.
I like
They
it.
really don't,
But if the tenant suggested, I mean,
Yeah.
what is who's got the ultimate say to raise the rent? You, right?
yeah,
So-
but
so
I could
if
do
the-
that
so-
without, I could do that,
know,
I
but
could
if-
raise
but
the
if the
rent
te- but if-
$500 right now with the tax.
The tenant's never gonna suggest it, because they're gonna think, if I suggest a rental inspection, then you're gonna raise the rent on me, so what's the tenant?
if
Yeah, but I'm sorry, but that's
That's
what life's
part- that's
about.
part-
Life
yeah,
is about
it
a
is, yeah.
negotiation.
And
You
if
know what
I-
I mean?
and
I
I-
just,
And
So
if I
basically,
may.
but saying that, it's almost like, well, it's a negotiation, so if the tenant doesn't suggest it, then the rent will be lower, but it may not be safe for you. I know that's not how you are, but there
Right.
are other landlords.
Yeah,
And you and I talked today, I think like the large ones.
Yep.
I mean, you read this survey here, and they were tearing apart one of these apartment complexes.
Yep.
In this plan, tearing it apart.
So I love this. Chief Tangway, thank you. Brandon, thank you. What I think, my perspective, is that safety is the sole driver, in my opinion, for this, right? So if I apply that logic to the safety element, right, then applying the safety threshold, to me, it makes sense. If X person got their rental inspection and they're still in the home and they're comfortable being in that home, rather than having to do it every 3-year cycle, right, maybe council could consider allowing that to progress without another inspection. To me, that is very different than somebody who's been in a home for 15 years, if that's the case, right, who did not have any inspection. So I would say in those scenarios, rather than saying your grandfather didn't, don't worry about it, like have some sort of way of notifying that resident, right, of that home, that your home hasn't been inspected, we ask for inspections, and make like some sort of sign off or something, so that they can acknowledge that, right? Like, that's important to me, because then at least I know the safety box is checked, which is that resident has made a decision to live in a home that has not been inspected, right? Like, I don't feel comfortable arbitrarily grandfathering something in, because the resident might not know the nuances of this, and God forbid something happens, I would feel terrible that we didn't do our job to enforce, and nobody was notified, because it was just, oh, you've been there for 15 years, you're good, right? To me, that's unacceptable.
I agree.
I agree.
I agree in principle with your comment there that giving them notification and letting them choose that they signed off on it I don't like using the safety word as a trigger. I feel like it's often thrown around like, if we say safety, 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 it's gotta be, everybody's gotta agree with that. If you don't agree with that, you're shunned as a member of the group. I think that that's something that we have to be cautious of, because obviously safety is important. Nobody wants to see anybody get hurt, but using that as kind of the face of anything, and anybody that goes against that is obviously against safety, is a cautious tale.
I'm not implying that anybody against is against safety. I'm saying safety is the driver to me, and that ensures safety.
I mean, that's why we do the inspections.
is
And
the
I know as I
rental-
see it, with I think we should keep every 3 years, the inspections, because, you know, as a homeowner, your own home, and if something happens, it happens to you. But if you're renting out to somebody, it's kind of like you're their boss over them. So you would have control, I mean, you would have, you know, you have control over that you're renting to them, you are. And you also don't know if they've changed stuff in there, or if maybe they've rewired stuff themselves. And if you didn't do the inspection every 3 years, you may not find that. It could be done not safely. And that's the reason we do the rental inspections. We want to make sure we keep the integrity of our city. We don't want to be like slum houses. I mean, my daughter went to
Again, though,
Michigan
I
Tech, and let me tell you what, she went to Michigan Tech, and a couple of the houses she lived up there, because they don't have inspections up there, I literally moved her out of one house because it was so scary. The electric, she'd turn a switch on, and upstairs another thing would go on. So I don't want to see nothing like that here, but I mean, that does go on. That stuff does go on.
So,
What do we
so
do
if I
with the
may,
homeowners that have 5 kids and someone who's just a drunk? That's a homeowner. You can't go and inspect it. He does his own thing.
Yeah.
I'm saying people are also responsible for their own safety. I'm
Well,
not
the renting-
responsible for the kids at my rental house.
so,
Yeah,
I
but
get an
but your
inspection.
rental is actually a business, so business has, they have rules to follow.
To me, again, I said it when I got up here, it's Leanne's home. It's not my home anymore. I just happen to have the funds to buy it, and I work hard. I took that supplemental money and I bought a rental.
But you make money on it, so that's kind of your
I
business.
probably make less than I was gonna bitch about the $300. Now I'm gonna. I probably make $100 a month on it. You don't
That's
make
not
much.
most people, though. Most people don't do that. Most people do it for business.
You do it.
Like most people.
You
I want-
buy,
but
no,
I
you buy
disagree.
a house and you don't make much. That's why this is the only business in the world that you could have 20 years of losses because you are renting, you are giving someone a place to live. So, I mean, that's what you gotta look. People who have one house are not making $500 a month, $600, $700 a month. You're not. There's no way.
So, and I think I want to stay to the weeds here of that specific financial nuance, right? I
Yep.
think let's just take a step back, right? So Marcia, Heard, you're saying you want it every 3 years, right? I'm asking, so let me just put some direct asks out. I would ask that any multi-unit property we ensure has inspections every 3 years. I would ask us to all buy into that. So I would feel way more comfortable when it's multi-unit property scenario. Apply whatever logic you want, but I think there's data, I've looked into this, there seems to be some increased risk or considerations of that would help enforce the 3 year, every 3 years we need an inspection.
Could the particular tenants, have an individual say as to whether they could sign off similar, if they've been in there for a period of time, they've been in there for 8 years, would they also have the ability to sign off on that and say, you know what, I really don't want anybody?
On that theory, though, like when he said multi-unit, the neighbor unit could actually cause a fire or something that
See,
could take out.
that's what I'm saying.
In your unit,
Yeah, good
they
point.
live there, it's the only person,
Yeah.
but in that.
No, point well taken.
That's
Cover the above.
it's an incredibly important point. I would ask us today to take a hard policy, at least for guidance for McKenna, that any multi-unit property is required to have a rental inspection every 3 years.
What's the fee structure McKenna's going to use based on multi-units compared to single units? How is that addressed? Is there a 90 for a 5% fee?
No, it should be the same, I
Same
thought,
across the
Vince.
board.
So it's $300 for a building that might have 6 apartments, or $300 for a
Oh,
home?
no,
or
it's
something?
per unit. It's a per unit cost.
Per unit.
Yeah, so same logic applies, they just have more units, so more rentals.
Who pays it,
the one question-
landlord or
I think that's
the tenant?
A landlord.
Who pays
It
it?
does sound
Landlord.
steep,
Landlord pays
yeah.
the $300?
The one question I was going to bring up was, is this like a standard, the 3 years, this standard across most cities, most communities? Is this something that's out there? I'm not very, I lived in a rental for a long time with my stepdad and mom.
mom, and, you know, it was a family-owned rental, and it was our house, but we still had to get inspected, you know.
My experience has been, if you're gonna have a housing rental ordinance, a 3-year cycle is typically what you're going to find. You know, in Monroe, I think, it was probably $125 per year. You could do the 3-year cycle, so it was higher than what you're paying here in Gibraltar. And some other places are even higher than that. And some of it, sometimes, you know, there's a reinspection that goes along with it if you have really significant issues that you require a second inspection. Sometimes communities will charge extra. Sometimes it's built into the base cost. Okay, we'll do the inspection and you get one other reinspection just to make sure that, you know, it was taken care of. So those are the considerations that go into the pricing itself. If they, you know, you go back for a third or a fourth, you know, then you start adding on the fee for the additional marginal cost for your inspector and your staff to you know, handle the scheduling and input into the problem.
Appreciate that a lot. Again, I feel pretty strong about this. I think all multi-units should have inspections every 3 years. If we want to revisit the cost structure, other stuff, I'm wide open for that discussion. But I don't see, especially with Chief Tangway's point, which I think is the critical point here, one action of one party could take that entire multi-unit impact. And to me, that's concerning, so.
I agree with multi-units being inspected. I think there should be, at a future topic, a fee structure and schedule with follow-up inspections or a breakdown for that, so it doesn't get out of hand.
I like that.
Right.
Okay, so we can take that as an action. Everybody aligned to look into that fee structure. I know McKenna is something we're gonna look into regardless, so we can look into that specifically. Okay.
And I also like the waiver idea of a current resident that might be in a home that's been there for a duration of time that could sign off on, I don't, you know, want an inspection.
I understand the risks or whatever, or the
Yes.
purpose of this inspection, and I decline and sign. So that's, okay, so if, multi-unit, sorry, before we leave there, so heard on that, and then fee structure we need to take a look at as an action. On not multi-units, that goes back to the discussion. So the paths are, we just talked about, right? One is require that the renter is notified, and if they choose to sign off, then they could be exempt from that exception requirement. That's one option, right? Which is, feedback has been shared, both sides of that party. The other situation to comment on is if somebody has an inspection, like Brandon's renter just had, then if they don't change their rental of that property, i.e. somebody new doesn't come in, that's grandfathered their inspection, meaning they've signed off that they're good with what they have. So I just want to put that back out of brainstorm, because we need to be able to give guidance to McKenna. Any thoughts? Amy, did you have something to add? Sorry.
Oh, first I was gonna say, I just looked up the fee schedule online, and it's $300 for a single family, and then it's, looks like it's $75 for each additional unit.
Okay,
So that would be the case for the apartments.
okay.
And then secondly, I can understand like having them sign off, but I think that there should be like only one period of sign off and just maybe every 6 years, just because stuff could happen. I was a landlord and it was every 3 years, and there's stuff that can happen in the house that you don't know about.
But I think that's also up to the investor. So my lease says I walk through my house once a year and look for things like that. You got to let the investors be the investor. I mean, I'm not a huge government fan, and I think there's always a thing, even altogether in America, you have privacy versus security. And, you know, I mean, what do you choose? I choose to be more private, you know what I mean? But that's always, you know, how much secure information and how much of your information on the net and how much is just privacy. It's just, I just don't like the fact that someone's going into someone else's household, you know, with kids every 3 years. And not to say, I thought the guy was very fair. I thought he did a fair inspection. I enjoyed talking to him. He said my house is nice. Well, he's comparing it to a bunch of e-course houses, but, you know, but yeah, I think the people deserve privacy.
Yeah,
That's all I'm saying.
exchanging liberty for protection should
Right,
be a
that's
personal
it.
decision.
Absolutely.
Brandon, on that, so you said you go through it every year. So she opens it up to you every year, right? Mm-hmm. Which it's her home that you said.
Yep.
But if the rental inspection came in every 3 years, you didn't want to open it up every 3 years. So it's.
It's not the city of Gibraltar that's
I
paying
know.
the investment for that house.
I know, but it's, I mean, but hear that a little bit of it, like,
Yeah.
I don't want
He's
to go
also
in
not
it.
a stranger. He's.
I know, he's not, but I mean, hopefully our building inspector won't be a stranger down the road.
I think,
Yeah, I just think it's, every 3 years is not uncommon. It's just, that's just to make sure everything's kept up, everything's done, to catch any things that might be wrong, or might be, if you don't know if you end up with a hoarder, you got stuff out in the yard. You know what I mean? That's just,
So-
this kind of protects the city and the residents that live around that house.
all right, so Marcia, you feel strongly that every 3 years this should be done. I hear head nods. We can't make decisions here tonight, so let's just be clear on that, right? So one,
Voting member, but.
so I hear, is anybody else sitting around this room, it's just important to get a read. Anybody else feel the same way as Marcia? Meaning it should be required every 3 years, no exceptions, no.
We're talking, single homes.
Single
and
homes. Well, multi-unit, we said is already the guidance gonna be every 3 years, like clockwork, no excuses. So
Okay.
now we're on
Who
single
feels that?
homes.
Okay.
So do you feel the same way? I'm just trying to get a read, because what we're probably gonna have to do here is take a vote and action on this from a motion perspective on Monday. So I'm just trying to understand, are we split? So Dorothy, how do you feel?
I'm always about safety. Just ask the fire department. I say yes to
Do you say,
everything, so
but
yes.
is your ask that you'd want every 3 years?
Yes.
Okay. And Councilman
agree.
Valentine?
I've been on the fire department, I know there's electrical fires that
All
occur.
right, so we can't take action here today. We're gonna have to visit this on Monday, to make a decision on this from a voting perspective. I don't see any other pathway here unless anybody has suggestions. So we can give the guidance on multi-units, and we can bring the information. I'll put it in your packet. I'll put in the language as it stands. I'll include letters that we've received on it. I'll answer some of the questions you have to make sure that council can take action one way or another on Monday. Do you have something to add, Katie?
Well, I was just thinking, if we do have the waiver, is there any stipulations? Say the landlord and the tenant do sign the waiver, and then a family member goes over there and is like, oh my gosh, this place is not good, and they report it to the city. We can't do anything, they sign the waiver, but it's actually is really unsafe. Is there a way,
It's a good caveat. And I will,
For every private home.
Yeah, that's what it's
I don't understand
it's
where
just
we're
too
going
much.
with this.
It's my last words and I'll sit down, but it's too much government for me.
Also,
It's too much
check
that,
with other
let's only
cities.
worry about the 10% rentals, and I see these crap holes that people have been living in for 10 years, and I get a ticket for a jet ski in my driveway or something like that. With broken stairways, broken windows, all over the place. I'm not
Brandon,
gonna mention the last names, but there's 2 brothers in this town, those houses look horrible. And you're worried about my rental, but I just think it's
You're
government
different than
overstepping.
most people.
Brandon, we appreciate the comments. I hear you on where you're coming from. We're gonna take action on Monday.
Yep,
one way or
no,
another.
I hear it, but that's my last words, but.
I appreciate it.
my one other thing was to see if any other cities do anything like this and what their stipulations
There are some waivers that have been, whether it's you're renting to a family member, sometimes there's a waiver associated with that, so you can structure waivers for different conditions. Tenants. It's-
Great discussion. So single unit, I'll put everything together for you. And Monday, we can figure out where council wants to go.
I have a little question for you, or a comment. If so many of them have not been inspected in so long, why wouldn't it hurt just to get a base of one done? And then, if they opt not to get it in 3 years? Just throwing that one out there, I mean.
I think that you're risking driving people away. You're risking that, people that have lived here in Gibraltar for a period of time. I fear, like we're telling those people potentially that, life's gonna get a bit more expensive around here, and if you can't afford it, there's gonna be a turnover. And I think that's letting down a portion of our population. And I know people disagree with me, that's how I feel.
Vince?
Do we have a lot of single-family rentals? Or most of them are,
It's broken down, and we can get that data point for you.
yeah, I'll have to.
It's in the, I'll put the analytics in your, what you know, so you'll have everything you need for Monday. Okay, this is great. The next one, any further comments on rental inspections before we get to IPMC? All right, IPMC, Councilman Molnar, thank you for investing what probably was a very significant amount of time in dissecting that. So let's start there. Really what I want to have a discussion on today is where do we go from here? So, Councilman Molnar provided comments. I printed them out, but I'm sure everybody's taken a look at those in the email. We've received those comments. We've received some feedback. And what I would ask this council to consider today, I spoke with Tina Kuzma today. For those that know Tina, she had shared some feedback previously on IPMC, like the importance of thoroughly looking at this, thinking how it fits to the city, et cetera, et cetera. But I guess what I'm gonna ask council to do is consider having additional expertise take a look at this IPMC. We're grateful for Councilman Molnar's feedback, and I think it'd be important to just have additional expertise to take a look at this so that we can arrive at a collective insight and path ahead for this IPMC topic. So that's one thing I would ask is council open for having additional eyes on IPMC so that we have expertise and experience reflected in how we choose to use the language or modify or propose change. And then the second step is where do we go from there? Meaning, I think there's a content and there's a policy or administration kind of component, and Vince would love to have you talk to that.
Well, Councilmember Molnar's comments, and when you're adopting, in reviewing it, I think it's important to recognize that when you're adopting by reference a code like this, and have done it with property maintenance code, building code, I think even the fire code, never get much into the mechanical, plumbing, or electrical. Every one of them has had modifications to many of the administrative related items I think you've addressed in there. So you do have to kind of tailor some things to fit what's right for your community, which is, in my experience professionally, every one of them. If you get these, you're not going to get into the details of the building code or, the code itself, but there's an administrative aspect to it. And there's also some policy frameworks by which you can do that. But I will tell you, every one that I've ever dealt with has had a modification to, the adoption of a code by reference. So you adopt it by reference with these exclusions and maybe these additions to it. And so it's not, it's important to recognize that it's just not a carte blanche, because there's some things that are not pertinent in here, that, and there may be some discretion. For example, they'll reference setting up a code. I could tell you, or a separate board for appeals. Yeah, we'll put it with the zoning board of appeals, or maybe the construction board of appeals, rather than create one more that may meet once every 4 or 5, 6 years. So there's some things that, you can, work with in the adoption itself, but most of them are going to be in the context of administrative practices, the latitude that you may give the code official relate certain things. And I will tell you, the one is in Monroe is that we got to a point where, we would follow a process by which you, from a property maintenance standpoint, would handle citing and eventually we went to council and said, okay, here's a laundry list that, okay, we're going to take them to district court and we need your blessing. It's gotten to that point, well in advance when it's coming, so it doesn't just show up on your council agenda. But there's a process that we use to try and address, and it was always an ongoing thing. I mean, it's just, but I do think that this is part of the process, is identifying what parts do you want to include, what do you want to exclude, from that. But I do think it's important to have, a property maintenance code out there, because there are going to be some residential and even commercial properties that may need to get some attention to, and you try and, be as supportive and helpful as you can, but ultimately sometimes they're just not going to comply, and you have to decide what direction you want to take ultimately, so.
Yeah, and then the last thing I'll add is, depending on where we go, I think would be astute for council to put this in front of the planning commission, in my opinion, for the relevant reasons of the scope of this. But I'm not an IPMC expert whatsoever. So, Councilman Molnar, do you want to?
A couple of things. Yeah, I mean, the idea, we do have a property maintenance code in place right now. It's the 15 version. There's, in practice, in terms of the specifics on there, there's not a dramatic amount different from 21 to 15. There's a handful of items. But You know, with respect to what's motivating this, and we know that this was presented to us by our third-party building department. And, you know, we have, you know, I think, I don't know if I mentioned it in that write-up or not, but we got a building on North Gibraltar Road that's been abandoned for 10, 15 years. It's got a door cracked open. It's a huge safety concern, but we've not done any enforcement whatsoever for that. So what do we see, dollar signs and things that we want enforcement on? We've not conducted any type of enforcement on an abandoned building in the middle of our downtown. That just, it drives a question is what do, if we've had these codes in places, we've had these things in places, we care about safety, we really care about safety, why aren't we touching, you know, things like that, but we're going to, you know, look for dollar signs elsewhere. I think we really have to deep dive and look at, you know, how important are these things to us.
I like that headspace.
Yeah, I think too, I mean, one of the reasons we put in that got the building department in is so they can get like that, you know, ordinance and
But they haven't gone, they've gone after low-hanging fruit financially. They've gone after where they can go to multi-tenant facilities and get thousands and thousands of dollars where they accumulate 95% of that profit for their shareholders. They've gone after where they think they can find money. Going after what's safe for our community is not their first concern.
and then we need to address that with them, because that's what they're supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be doing that.
I think Councilwoman Cosmo, I think it's a fair point, and I think we can all acknowledge that there were some things that weren't being done that are probably now being done, which has caused a reaction to them being done, if that's what I'm hearing. I think the second point, Councilman Mueller, is I hear you on the abandoned property, but it is different than the rental inspection thing we were just talking about from a safety perspective. I just want to be clear on that. And then, Vince, do you have any perspective on that? Like, in your expertise, why, to Councilman Muller's point, 2015 to 21? How do they relate to each other, and why is 21 so critical?
I went through and done the complete analysis of it, but they're very, very, usually just very marginal changes that take place. Some of it may be a function of some case law here or there, but by and large, it doesn't change all that dramatically. But, you know, going to the point of code enforcement is that you have to have a system in place in which you have a series of, you know, citations, give reasonable time in which to, you know, to address the problem. There may be instances where there's an emergency where you can, you know, go on the property and just lock it up if need be, if it does represent kind of an attractive nuisance to the community. But you still have to carry out the rest of the process to have the property owner comply, and ultimately what you may have to do is take it to court and get court, you know, action in which they compel the property owner to at least take care of the minimal deficiencies and hazard that it represents. And that literally, it's not that easy either. It's hard to set it up so that you've got a structured process in place where it's timely, and then ultimately, you know, in the case when I was in Monroe, the council and the community were starting to get tired of some of these blighted properties, and so it took us a while to put that in place where it worked effectively and efficiently. But it is how you go about doing it, and so it does take a little bit of time, and so unfortunately, just once you're committed, you got to be in all the way, though. So.
And what part of it is content, and then a part of it is enforcement, if I'm hearing correctly,
Oh,
right?
it's-
Meaning,
there's-
to Councilman Molnar's point, we have a property maintenance code in place, it's not being enforced.
Right, exactly.
And I don't believe like McKenna was brought in under the enforcement. You know, our code officer is still doing the enforcement aspect of
Exactly.
it. So McKenna's, not- you know, and I just had to deal with that situation today where we're going to have the enforcement officer look at something tomorrow.
Yeah.
Now, they offer that, but we kept our own internal.
Yeah.
So this vacant building, obviously, I mean, if they've done an inspection or there's something going on, but I mean, if our code enforcement officer needs to do something there, I'll gladly send him over. I know he just sent me a stack of letters while I was gone that he sent to some businesses downtown about the way their business looks, and it doesn't look, so I don't know if I think, like he sent 3 letters out to 3 different businesses right there in that area that the businesses don't look that well. And all they were was, hey, could you please bring your business up to date, or it doesn't look very well, and he cited some of the issues in the letters, but he that building, I'm trying to picture where it is you're talking about, with an open door and vacant door, I mean, he's been after this, they call it the mansion, the vacant house over here on, he's wrote them so many letters, and we've wrote tickets and enforcement and tried everything, and then the owner starts something up again, and then we're back over there again, but it takes forever to really shut a building down, or a home down. It's a long process.
So thank you, Chief Tangway. So let me ask a few direct questions then. Is anybody opposed to providing this IPMC to Tina or any other experts that have volunteered their expertise so that they can take a look at this and provide their comments just like Councilman Molnar has? Anybody opposed to that additional input for y'all? Okay, so we'll get additional input, right? So then, because I don't know any of this stuff, so I'm sure all of you would benefit from another perspective in addition to Councilman Molnar's, so that we have a well-rounded set of expertise present on the document. So that'll be one step. Second step, does this go to planning at all? Or is this next step going to council? Is there any council perspective on this going to planning versus to council as the next step?
I mean, we're already at the point of a second reading of this, so to go back to planning commission, which is going to, I'm just going to say from my perspective, you're going to send it to planning, which is going to send back a recommendation to council to act. I think we're already at council.
Okay,
So
keep it at council.
the action should stay here.
Okay, so stays with council. Okay, perfect. And then any other actions that are required? So if we have additional comment on this IPMC to council, then is there anything else that council would need to act however they so choose? And I'm leaning heavily on Vince and team here.
You know, and I think there's some of the policy issues, and again, this is going to require some council feedback. You know, there's a couple of sections in there dealing with weeds. Does it belong in the property maintenance? I think you probably got a nuisance ordinance that you have high grass, and there's a definition, so you pull something like that out of here. Motor vehicles, that's, you know, given the nature of the town, you're probably gonna have a few boats in the driveway. It's just, and trust me, I've dealt with it before where, okay, how do you do it seasonally? Or do you, you know, allow for, you know, someone to work and repair their vehicle? You see the gamut where somebody's actually, takes a while to work on some things, you catch as you can, and then there's folks that are gonna have 4 or 5 vehicles, you know, that's a different matter. But those are policy-related things to above and beyond the administrative, and so, while we, you know, because this is, you know, gives a lot of food for thought here, as to what to include, what to potentially exclude, but some of it's gonna come down to policy things the council's gonna have to decide, I think, above and beyond whatever group we assemble to review it.
Okay.
So you're saying we have building inspections, so we have McKenna as the building department inspections, but then we have our ordinance officer doing the weeds and the rest of what you're talking about.
Yeah,
That
and that's
will-
typically, you know, they can work in concert. There's gonna be times where they're gonna have to work together, but predominantly code is a separate aspect of, you know, community maintenance, whereas the other building is, you know, yeah, operating and functioning on a different code.
So it's a big ticket item too on this, in my opinion, is, you know, there's multiple references to who's the code official.
Yeah.
And I guess that we don't have a determined code official here. The way our charter reads is that our engineering department would be an in-house department and that our lead engineer would be the code official. We don't have a code official. We have a contracted out building department, we have a code officer, but we don't even have the code official, so we would need to define that. But it gives us a great opportunity to consider a part-time in-house, you know, city engineer that would have that authority. They're a city person and not a contracted service that has the amount of authority that is provided in these codes.
I was kind of surprised because I was reading through those codes too, the code official, how much authority they have. They have a lot of leeway. It's a lot.
That's a,
And we don't even have that person defined.
it's a great call out. All right, so,
That wouldn't work well in court either.
Right.
If challenged.
Yeah.
Okay, where's your authority?
Yeah.
That's something that would have to be corrected.
all right, so really good call out. So this is great. So you'll have a set of interpretations, recommendations, feedback. Councilman Millard, thank you again for doing all this. I'll give the document to Tina. I'm not sure how much time she's gonna require, but I spoke with her today. And we will go ahead and then provide all of that to council, so you have a collective set of input to review. Council can then discuss, weigh action, and make sure they hit on some of these things like code official, enforcement, policy, et cetera. Does that sound like a good next step for everybody? Cool. Any other comments on IPMC or Vince, anything else you want to share?
No?
All right. Last item for today's agenda is going to be our professional services. Before we get there, is there any public comment on professional services? Okay. Council,
5-minute break.
Yeah.
I have to move.
oh yeah, do you guys want a 5-minute break?
Yeah, if you
Yeah,
don't
if I'm
mind.
sitting too long, I gotta move.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do a 5-minute break and then we'll close with professional services.
Good call, Marcia.
5 minutes, we'll be back at 33.
Run some copies and hand these out to you.
As long as you and Katie are aligned.
Are you okay if I print these out? I had to, I don't know if you saw a chance to look at the other stuff I put in there, the supplemental questions. You okay if I throw those in there? And I kind of want to talk
Oh,
with
on
them.
the agenda?
It's not on the agenda, but for,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's why I always had open discussion.
okay. Okay, good, all right.
Your mics are still on.
What's that?
Your mics are still on.
Shifted over to the other side, so you're concentrating on one side, while the other guy is concentrating on the other. So, just wanted to say, I saw that. Sure you should. 2 days after I was back, it's like, yeah, back in the grind. I sometimes even go, because I come home. That's how you need it. Not even nice to visit the time of the season, you just take it off. So, the weather has cooperated mostly for us, except for recently. So it's just that.
And that's the point he's trying to get across.
But we can correct it with
I don't know.
other buildings, because if you're not homesteading, then it's either a rental or your second.
But like. Second reading time for one thing.
That's what you want.
Right, absolutely.
What's it do for the city? I don't know. Where they push the glory thing, it's a safe for the people.
Yeah, it's just beating on your chest a little bit, you know, and there are people that believe it. There are people that listen and think, oh, they're protecting us. But there's people like us that go, we don't need nobody to protect us, we protect ourselves. I go out the house and I protect myself. I don't ask for protection everywhere I go.
I mean, when in the last 5 or 10 years have you seen insurance companies make you feel good about buying insurance? They have, they got commercial.
Well, why do you think it keeps going? I think it's going up because of the.
They're not making any money.
Well, right, but listen, if you have a house that costs $80,000 to insure versus you have a house that costs $80,000 to build versus a house that costs $120,000 which one's gonna cost more insurance?
I had something to do, I had high school softball.
Right, so the more stringent you make the
I looked at the agenda, I know I'm gonna be here. Versus open door.
On the north side, it's a garage door, north side. So I reviewed the street file on it before, and I got a laugh at the last time there was any city enforcement on it was 2012, and they told me to make buildings. No, it's the guy who owns it, something from the Fox is his last name. But he's just a single individual who owns the building. He's been in prison for 10 years. He's out now. His mom always pays his taxes.
All right, council, we're gonna go ahead and get started here in a minute.
Well, I always looked at being in Gibraltar as being a little bit kind of the country along the water. We're like the rural area on the water, which means you're not the highfalutin area that can afford to do all these things. We're the rural area around the water. Just means something to me. It means something to be, and if we're gonna make everything just, it's everywhere, supplies everywhere.
All right. I know Vince is bringing a document for everybody to consider, but we can start getting the wheels moving. So we're on our third topic. Before we jump in, just to give everybody an opportunity to revisit that. Katie, are we okay on the AV?
Yep.
Council, everybody got their mics on?
Your mic's back on.
Good. All right. So the third topic at hand, and then Vince will have one quick item before we close. The third topic is going to be professional services. Council, both in your packet as well as in this little study guide I gave you, if you turn to the second to last page, so page 2 of the little packet, you're going to see the little table there. I know it's not the largest of fonts, but I want to use that as the backdrop for our discussion. So for the professional services discussion, here's what I'd like to put in everybody's mind. We have our legal RFP for what's council motioned. Katie and Vince, you can give us an update. How many?
We
did
received 8 proposals.
That's awesome.
We received 8 proposals, which is very exciting. So that's for our legal services. So we're going to be meeting as the committee that was looking after that. We're going to be meeting this week. And then obviously coming back to council subsequently for a path on how we will manage the interviews and discussions there. But great news on the legal front. With that being said, we made a commitment to each other that we would hold accountability to all of our professional services. And we have many others that need to look at it. Now, I will start with the obvious. For priority waste, the information has been handled over to our legal counsel per the last meeting we had. Vince, thank you so much for compiling all that. So the priority waste recycling discussion is now with legal counsel per discussion, but we still need to talk about the RFP process and visiting those services amongst the others in here. Engineering, building department, we just talked about that, assessor, city planner. So council, what's important to me, and Vince and I were chatting briefly today as we were preparing this information, was, how we want to manage this process. Meaning our professional services, and I would be a big advocate for putting all professional services under a cycle for which we RFP. I think it drives accountability, but again, that's a broader discussion, just something to consider. Second is Vince had highlighted the concept that, look, we could write these RFPs for all these, but obviously there's a lot of other work going on, so we want to prioritize and execute. So I'll stop there. How does council feel about professional services, RFPs, as we move forward?
So if I may, I think it's super important that we consult our charter on this. So the way that our charter is written is the engineering department is overseeing the building department and planning department. But the way that we have it contracted out right now are a siloed approach, and we don't have a quarterback, playing the right position. So I would be a proponent of finding a way to have an engineer on staff in some way, shape, or form. Part-time is more than sufficient, and I think there's ways to do this, that is a quarterback over the engineering services, the building department, and the planning department. And I think that as we have larger engineering projects, they can put out the RFPs for project-specific engineering needs that we have, so that we're not retaining somebody who's on a percentage basis that's not beneficial to our finances. We have somebody that the building department can go to that is their lead. We have somebody that the planning department can go to. We have a coordinator in the seat. And I think that that's something that is feasible, an approach that we ought to consider.
Any reaction, council?
I like his idea.
So
A lot of it depends on, we gotta look over here.
Yes.
Depends on Amy and if we can afford that.
yeah.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't know where the money would come from because I've got police contracts, I'm already pulling from fund budget. I got vehicles that we need, I've got equipment that we need, I've got maintenance that's going on. I mean, we're on a tight budget as,
But what we're gonna pay.
I think we're gonna
Amy,
save money on this. This is
Right,
the cost.
I understand where you're coming from on wondering where it's from, but if you capture some of the funds from the different avenues that's already collecting that money from professional services, I truly believe you'll find that we have enough revenue to do that. Okay, if you follow Rob's concept and you can find somebody on a part-time basis, that changes the dynamics too. So if you get a retired engineer that might want to do 3 to 4 days a week in lieu of a full-time position, right? And other things fall into that category, the water license, as he said, the building department. You're still going to outsource the engineering for projects. You're still, but that person would be in charge of getting that information out and receiving that based for city council. So I do think that there is potential to find that revenue.
I'm gonna say we also have to find equipment. Honestly, I'm being begged from DPW to find them another worker. I mean, there are other things that I have to consider with the budget before considering something like that.
Yes, 100%. So let's do this. So obviously, thank you, Councilman Molnar, for the feedback on the structure proposal. Councilman Cox seems aligned to that. Councilwoman Cosmore suggested that sounds conceptually interesting. The devil's in the details. I don't know the details of that, so I would just ask that for those members that are proposing this, to be able to sit down with Amy to make this case financially of how that operates under current budget terms. Is that a fair ask? Can we take that as an action? And obviously present it to council.
I think it's fair, and where I would start with that is by delineating places where there were projects this year that were percentage-based fees that our contracted engineer received, that had it gone out for bid, would have been a fraction of the price. We see savings on one project with this scenario. And I can put that into a spreadsheet and go over it and absolutely can show where we can find some savings there. But more importantly than anything, I think getting back into alignment with our charter is super, super important. And if we can save money in the meantime, great. I don't think it's going to cost us a nickel. I really, truly don't.
And look, obviously, that's why I think there's conceptual support on the topic being explored. I would just ask, please, for you experts that are proposing this, sit down with Amy as a first step to just put down the case of financially how this makes sense and present it to council if that's a reasonable ask. I feel like on that line of thinking, like Vince and I were talking about today, when we were talking about preparation for tonight, it's like I feel really excited because we have expertise on council and planning, number one, that I think has been really refreshing to be able to take a critical look at a lot of these topics. And then number two, for the Infrastructure Advisory Committee, like I rest easier knowing that there's a lot of amazing experts that know engineering or know that work to weigh in on the topic. So I like the model of like accountability and check and balance on it, but obviously the structure evolution there of part-time engineer that oversees planning and building, just ask that you sit down with Amy to talk about the financials.
Yeah, because it's very stressful. I don't think you guys, well, you probably do understand to a degree, but it's very stressful to put somebody else on the budget and then to think, and I have to make sure that we have the money to run the city well as pay all of our staff members. And that is a huge stress on me to add somebody else when I'm already pulling from fund balance for our current staff members and our current needs.
Yeah, we can't keep pulling from fund balance.
100%. Amy, and we've all made the commitment that we are going to hold the line on what you say recommendation-wise from a financial perspective. What you're hearing from council, or at least what I'm hearing tonight, is they don't feel it's going to cost an incremental penny. So I say the devil's in the details. Please showcase that to Amy, what you're proposing, and then showcase it to council so that we can fairly evaluate.
Yeah, absolutely. That's our role, is to set the policy, and you know, that's our job up here to do that. That's what we're elected to do. Absolutely, we can talk about the details and show you what perspective that we see, but that's ultimately our role up here, is to you know, set that policy.
So one action is, Amy, to your point, follow-ups to break down that financial perspective based on the proposal at hand.
As well as the cost of the equipment, and I mean, I even did like a brief research as to how much other cities pay for that, and I mean, the engineers make more than what our city administrator would make in some cities.
No, we're not looking at a full-time position, and we've already had conversations with, or I've already had conversations with previous engineer that worked in this city and asked him, you know, what the market bears for a day or two a week and what some of the responsibilities they hold. It's budget, it is, we have the opportunity to save money here and get back in line with our charter. I feel firmly in that direction.
So Amy, like I said, we're going to respect it, and I'm sorry because I know it's a lot to absorb. What I'm saying is you're being assured right now that this is a savings opportunity to better the operational line with our charter, so let's have that as a follow-up discussion.
And I think if you look at he's proposing a part-time position, so if all of a sudden it's not working out, it's not like we've committed to somebody full-time, and so, I mean, if you're gonna try anything, that's the best way to try it, right there.
And the benefit package won't be.
Yeah, so that's the best way to try something, in my mind.
Yeah, infrastructure-wise, what's coming up in the future, it might be a good card to hold.
So I think it's an interesting concept. Thank you for pushing it, and let's just please follow up with Amy and council so that we can all learn about what the proposal would look like.
Yep, I'm happy to do that. I think that really talks about three parts of our process here, and yeah.
But I will say that I just want to be blunt. I think if it is part-time engineer that oversees planning and building, right, I have some concerns and would like to take a look at things like planning. So are we?
And building, of course, yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
so I just want to make sure that this isn't.
No, it's not in lieu of, no, that would be supporting of, absolutely.
I would just encourage council, I've found it refreshing that as we've deep dove on topics and really audited and held accountability, I like what we're doing there. And I think there's some changes that I think need to be considered on a lot of fronts. So I just ask that part-time heard, let's talk about that as a pitch. But Councilman Molnar, you mentioned that kind of hits on 3 buckets, fair, but we're still gonna need to take a look at the
Agreed.
city planner
Yes, sir.
and the assessor.
Yep.
Okay. Understand, though, that this contract is up, right? The engineering department's contract as of 3/22.
March 22nd, yeah.
Right, so are we
It just carries.
right, we're going to carry them along until we make decisions to either alter it or stay on the same path or whatever it might be.
That's
Go
what
out for
I'm
an
hearing.
RFP or whatever.
That's what I'm hearing. So I think action 1 would be sit down with Amy to talk about the pitch you've just assembled. I would really appreciate if you could share that with council as well, just so we can all understand what the discussion is. And then that would help inform the engineering RFP process, right, or lack thereof.
Yeah.
And then the other ones, so how do we, so we're good on, so we perfectly going online here. So legal, we're rolling.
Yep.
Engineering, action 1, and then action 2.
Yep.
Building,
That's McKenna, isn't it?
it's McKenna. We have our agreement till the 2026, July 24, 2026. I think we're going through some growing pains there. Amy, I know we just saved some money. How much money did we just save?
I don't know offhand, I don't have it
Okay.
in front of me.
All right, we can make a follow-up there, but good discussion there. Building department, any action? I mean, obviously, we have an agreement that was just established, and that term is till 2026. Is there any action that council would like to talk about there?
I like giving them an opportunity with guidance. I think that they are a growing company in this arena that is not well-developed. The one challenge that I see there is that we did not, the city of Gibraltar, previous administration did not submit an RFP for this. This was just, the previous mayor just kind of handpicked and gave the option of, you guys want this or do you want nothing? So there wasn't an RFP submitted for this to solicit people.
Yep.
And, but I do think that
Are
they're.
you talking for the,
McKenna.
for
McKenna,
McKenna, the
yeah.
building department?
Yeah.
Okay. Because we did talk about this, yeah, we did try to
Talked
get-
about Brownstown.
We tried Brownstown, yes.
There was no formal RFP put together and there was nothing put out there.
No, and you're right, because the administration, yeah, they kind
It
of
was a
fell
rush, it was a
through big
rush.
time.
It was one of the last orders of business, yeah. It was a rush
Yeah,
job.
so we did try, so, well,
But
you see
a formal
how that happened.
request for proposal never went out.
No,
No.
it did not.
Okay, but we feel like under the supervision currently and the guidance currently, we can work in growth together on McKenna as it stands currently.
I personally think that we give them an opportunity. They're in there now. They're
Does anybody have any objections to that?
they're receptive to working with us and asking
do
for
ask.
direction.
They do ask for
I
direction.
think they deserve the opportunity.
Yeah, so we probably
And I
didn't give
think-
them all the direction they needed, so.
And my perspective is, I think Laura has been great in the front. Please correct me if I'm wrong there, but I think the vibe is great with the personnel. I think Sam has been really amenable to feedback and addressed feedback pretty quickly, so I like that. Okay, so building, we feel good. We'll continue to just talk about it. We just talked about today, some of the guidance we can give them.
If I could just add one thing, they have done, we got talking about the zoning ordinance, and it kind of started some of it with Arthur, the need for the change, but also with McKenna, particularly with Laura and Steve, who work here. And McKenna, on our behalf, actually put together a grant for us to get $50,000, and we're probably in a good spot to get it, to rewrite our zoning ordinance, which really, really needs to be done. So it is something, kind of ties in with the next thing with the planning end of it. But we do need to consider, the zoning ordinance being rewritten. And this grant would probably should cover just about all of that, so. So it's a kind of initiative on their part, just through a kind of a discussion, and one thing led to another, so.
I appreciate that. I'd like to RFP the assessor in the planning department. I'll just cut straight to the chase on that. So I'm open to any discussion on that or objections to that, but I think both need to be RFP'd. Any objections?
The one thing with the assessing, I did talk with the mayor. I said that, and again, it comes with, some training, but, you've got a good staff up front. You really do. And, there's, and part of my question, the preface to all of this is what's driving it? Do you want more hands-on personnel here providing the service rather than a contract? And I basically said, look, you could train, the two young ladies up front to be, assessing texts where they can take and process a lot of the information. And then maybe you hire somebody part-time to be your assessor. Now, it's going to take a while. I talked with Katie a little bit about it. You may have to have some additional administrative support, clerical support in the front. If you're going to ask a little bit more of them, you're going to pay them a little bit more for it. There's a contractual thing. But if it's driven by having more hands-on customer service, you might look to internally to some of your staff to do that. Because you've got good people up there that are capable and, as long as you train them, and I think they certainly have that capacity to learn. So just something, food for thought with that. Writing and assessing RFP is not difficult, though. It's,
Normally, I like to see as many people in these roles that are community members as possible, but the assessor might be a good one to. If we're gonna yell at somebody, they ought to live in Dearborn or
live 20
something.
miles away.
And I think the bandwidth of those personnel currently.
It would
be,
challenge, yeah, it would expand it and,
I would say, thank you for the suggestion and something to be considered in the bigger picture, but I would say we should RFP both assessor and planner, in my humble opinion, unless anybody has objections to that. And I would suggest that, obviously, that would be phase one, but I just think as we work through this engineering discussion, which I'm excited to have, and then as we work through these other pieces, that as we get things built the way we want them to foundationally, that we also have the bigger discussion of like, what's the path?
Yeah.
Are we gonna be RFPing every time the term's up? But like, how do we wanna manage this? And just get into a cycle, you know?
I really like what Vince said about staggering the years.
Yes.
I really
100%.
think there's value in that.
I think I mentioned there's a community that I'm aware of that has a committee of their city council that's comprised of just annually reviewing their professional services, soliciting the bids, reviewing them, conducting the interviews, and making the recommendation to the city council if there's a change. So that way, it's ongoing, and it's systematic.
All right, I love this. So legal, great spot. 8, and more to come on that. Engineering, action to meet with Amy, Councilman Cox, Councilman Molnar. And then building, we talked about that. Assessor and planning, Vince will look to you to maybe help us with the RFP on both, and then we'll get that back in front of council. Any other discussions on professional services? Awesome discussion. Okay, before I hand it over to Vince, who's got one closing item for us, just to kind of recap. So I think we hit every topic. Thank you very much for an awesome discussion. On the resident survey, we had a really good discussion on content. I'm gonna circle back with the feedback and the different options, and then I'll engage a couple experts for y'all to consider so that we can test some of the potential bias and methodology discussions. Then we can get council to decide how we wanna act and timeline for that. But I love that. We also discussed channels for distribution, all the above. So win on that front. Building department, we got guidance on rental inspections for multi-unit, and then single unit will be discussed on Monday. And I'll make sure you have all the information to make it a council level decision on that. IPMC, we are in a good spot with additional perspective coming in and then back to council. And then professional services, I think we landed on some suggestions for how we might consider managing those. So Vince, since we've gotten through the topics on the agenda, I'll turn over to you for the last topic before we let council get
I
on.
think I may be still one short down that way, I just didn't print enough. But this pertains to the interview tomorrow for the city administrator position. What you'll see is what the questions that you had when you interviewed me for the interim, which I thought were very, very good questions. I really did. And so I like the fact that when Chief Tangay asked the question, is there anything that they didn't ask that we should? There was only, one question or one thing that I added related to that. I think generally it hits the points that you need to hit with that. I did put some supplementary questions and some of the, with just the introductory related things, whether you want to put those in there or not, but the first one is in there, okay, give us your background and your education and why why you'd be a good fit for Gibraltar. So it kind of feeds out with what they know about the community. And, again, express your interest in Gibraltar. In talking with, about the process is that you do want to get a sense of what their personal and professional reasons are for it. I've always, known that there's some questions that you can't ask, but go ahead and let the council know when you're being interviewed because they're curious. So there's an opportunity for the candidate to do that, and then whatever research. The other part, the second part is just interpersonal skills. What do people like about you? And then I always like one of my favorite questions, tell me about people that don't like you and why. That's really important. It's just, because not everybody's going to like you, and if they don't like you, what do you do that?
And if they don't answer it, you know
Yeah,
they're lying about something.
Well, I will tell you, there's one question that tripped me up. I shouldn't say it tripped me up, but it gave me pause, and I basically said, well, I'm a pretty easy, reasonable guy, but they've always perceived that maybe as a sign of weakness. No, if you've done something wrong, and you made a mistake, I'll deal with it. And so those are the type of things where, you may find, or somebody may just tell you, I'm impatient sometimes, and that's fair enough. I think But I think it's a good question to ask. And again, you got regularly dealing with residents who are unhappy. How do you want to handle it? Are you going out to their property to meet with them? And then team building is important, you know, an approach with that. And then also, all of the candidates, I mean, you've got a good group there, but everybody comes with, you know, some areas where they're not strong, and just, okay, what do you think are your deficiencies, and, you know, what would be your professional development plan to address those? When would you like to start if offered? Do you have any questions? And then I go through the questions, don't ask, you know, any direct questions regarding when did you graduate because of your age, you know, family, health or disabilities, religion, sexual orientation or preference. And then questions are, you know, I kind of stay away from that would come up in there if you've been involved with litigation, if you've been fired. So when you do the background check, a lot of that times that will come into play for that. And then lastly, one of the things for council to consider is to try and achieve unanimous support for a candidate. And the reason is that they're making a big professional and life decision, and they're not going to come here if it's a 4-3 and 5-2. Some people will take a chance, which isn't always good either, meaning they're somewhat desperate. But the point of it is, if you can do that, that would be wonderful. Even if they're not your top choice and you see the direction is going, if you feel you can live with them, but maybe not your top choice, keep that in mind, because you do want them off to a good start. And then lastly, it's just, you know, when you get, if you do make a decision on who you want to make the offer, is make it sure you use the language, it's a conditional offer, subject to a background check before you sit down and go forward with any negotiations. So it's always a conditional offer. That way you're protected from making the offer and then they think they've got it. They still have to go through the background check, and I think that's the important due diligence associated with the process. The chief's got a good system in place that he's implemented. It's not flawless. He didn't find all my problems, so it's
Yes, Vince.
No, I'm just kidding.
Councilman Valentine had something for you.
What is going to be the structure? Who's going to ask the questions?
How did you guys do it before? I thought it worked fine.
We went down the
I thought the
table.
rotation.
Gave everybody a chance.
I actually like it.
Did you like it?
I really do. I really do. I think
That's
it's,
how the school board did it. That's how we always
Are y'all open to that approach? I thought that was nice.
Good. Can we get
yeah.
one of these for each person so we can?
We will
fill
have it, yeah, yeah, we'll give you a clean copy, have it available tomorrow, so.
I got a question.
Yeah.
JD.
If we choose to ask candidate number one, question C, do we have to ask every candidate that question?
Which one was C?
I don't know, I just named.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think in some cases, if you can, and there's the variation with it, that's fine too, though.
Katie's asking, do we have to be regimented in the question asking where each candidate answers the same questions, or can we offer some?
He says you should,
You
but
can
you
have
could
some-
waiver from that.
Right.
And some
You want to get the same information
You
from
get the
each
same,
one.
you might get a
Yeah.
Chief?
different answer.
Somebody's answer to number one may answer a couple of questions too.
Yeah.
Their number one answer may mark off 2 or 3 of your questions.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah, so council, we'll do the same flow. Vince, thank you so much for putting this together. Katie, thank you for setting the tone too up front on these interviews from the last one that we got, Vince. And we'll go each person like we did last time, and you have your floor for questions. That sounds good.
I have prior engagements, but I'm going to try to squeak in, but I don't know if I'll make it for all of them.
I just ask that he watches and provides feedback accordingly.
I'd like to sleep at some point, no.
No, I think I'm going to, if I may, Mayor, I'm going to try and set up something. I'm not sure if I may sit out in the audience, and the reason is that, you know, you'll have candidates coming in, and I'd like to be the one that, I'll send them a note, you know, get here 15 minutes early, and you know, we'll have a place waiting for you while the previous candidate's finishing up their interviews, so it's just.
Yeah, your guidance on this has been pretty terrific. We're, super
appreciate it.
happy
Yeah.
for the couple of months we got to spend with you.
Would love to have your name on that list.
Do it.
We can make the decision now.
Make a motion? Oh,
You already did that
No.
once, didn't you? Didn't work?
No actions in study sessions.
Thank you.
I got you, but you're staying.
Oh, but you, yeah, your
take
direction.
it as a compliment,
Yeah,
Vince.
thank you, I appreciate it.
I tell them that every day, how grateful we are, and you've allowed us to have continuity and success for the long term in whoever's gonna be in that seat, so thank you so much.
Well, it's been good for me too, though. I don't want you guys to lose sight of it. I thoroughly enjoy it. It's a wonderful community. I
We're-
just wish I was 5 years younger.
And the good news is we have some time ahead of us, so we're not at the end of the road yet.
Yeah, we all do, right?
We'll have a break.
Katie mentioned the break, and we'll have a break at 5 PM. Anything you want to comment on there?
We'll get some food.
So we'll coordinate to make sure everybody's fed.
Okay.
Thank you, Katie. Yeah, he shows up just for food. That'd be legendary. Okay, council, I'm really excited about the discussion. I think we got direction on everything we came for. I won't even burden your minds after 2.5 hours with the other thing I put in your study guide, which is the larger priority list. So we're not gonna go down that path right now, because I think it would not be mentally the right thing to do after 2.5 hours discussion we've just
Probably
had.
another study-
But we just know that that's in the backdrop, which is we have a lot of other things we need to address, but we have a really good plan for the four we're covered today. Katie, do we need a motion to adjourn? Before we do that, any public comment? Okay.
Do you want me to mention anything about the lead and copper while you're out there?
Yeah, why don't you, that, or you could save it,
Really quick.
or you could save it to Monday, but yeah, go ahead.
The DPW in the month of March was tasked to get 52 inspections done at the curb boxes. A few of you were there at the meeting when we did this, so we were very adamant that we were going to get these done. 52 inspections were done. There were 9 that were found to be lead. One was from the street side to the main, and two of those 9 were from the water shut-off to the main. When I say the water shut-off, I mean the curb box in front of your house. As of now, they've been putting all of them on. We have a meeting with Amy tomorrow to go over all the data that we retrieved for the, help me out, the grant that we got. And we have been tracking them online. So the list here that I have is the ones that we have to turn into the state of Michigan by October. And we have 1,500 water counts. That's the lowest amount that the state is requiring. So you have to do 20% of that number. Well, if you took out with our records that we already know, and from the year 1980, so there's only 1,200 that we had to do. So there's 240 that we have to report to the state, and we have 150 of them already done, because we've been doing this prior to March. So within the next week, we'll be way past 240.
Is that 240 per year?
You have to do a percentage. The state wants a percentage of it.
Percentage, but our equates to 200, our percentage breaks down to 240, and that's per year, right?
No, it's 240.
Okay.
It's a percentage of all the ones that fall under their criteria.
And then it could, I
And
think
then
it
we
starts
have-
collapsing from there, 20% of whatever the remaining is.
And then we have to, right now, collapse even smaller, and then we have to do a percentage of lead service lines every year.
I think one of the, and correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the bigger savings that we had with that is we didn't have to go out for bid for services to do that.
Yes.
And there wouldn't be a percentage tied to the engineer who really didn't engineer anything, but just collected.
Replace this.
Right, and let you guys know, the mayor had stopped by the DPW earlier, and we were explaining to them the subcontractor that is doing a lot of the cities around us. And if you know what a curb box is, everybody knows that thing you hit with your lawnmower in front of your house all the time. It's the easiest way to put it. We are actually vectoring 18 inches on both sides of it, pulling that out, making sure the valve works for your house in case of emergency, checking for lead or copper, putting a new riser on it so it works, backfilling it with stone and then dirt. I've talked to one engineer that's watching a town that's close by to us, we'll just put it that way, and watch them vector on both sides of the curb box, look down at it, fill it back in. So, and if it's below grade, they're putting it
Pulling it
below.
right back below grade.
They're pulling it back right below grade, so they're not even testing it to see if it's working. So we have this down, and Amy will like it to the minute. She told us 15 minutes she goes on her increments. We have it down to the minute of how long it takes us to do one.
So bottom line is, we only have 9 lead lines
So far.
done?
No, we know, these are, the ones we have to look at are the ones that are unknown. We know that there's some out there already. But we can't use that one under this grant. the grant is unknown ones.
And we had a very productive call with Eagle to verify all this process and discussion. So Bill and team, thank you profusely for hitting what you said you were going to set out to do. And
See the pile.
appreciate it. I stopped by today. They were explaining to me, I'm learning this process as well. But we had a call with Eagle. They're happy with the progress, the documentation. To Councilman Molnar's point, we're saving money doing it this way. Bill and team, thank you. Appreciate it.
I'll let you guys know. And I'll bring it up, I'll put it in the council packet for Monday, so everybody can see.
Yeah, if you could put all the
This
details.
Spreadsheet will be about 18 pages long, so I don't know if you want,
Want to tape it up along the wall?
that's about as it'll be.
Thanks for the update. Any other open items from council? And if not, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Katie, call roll.
Wood,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Hasmore,
Yes.
McNabb, Molnar.
Yes.
Schumate.
Yes.
Valentine.
Yes.
Thank you all so much.
Okay, okay. Excuse me, Dorothy, sorry.
I know, my chair won't move.
Yeah.